Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Baltic Cloud Forum 2025 here in Riga at the AC Hotel, first of its kind, forum. My name is Gundar Sreders. I'm a journalist at Latvian TV. I'm honored to guide you throughout this program. And greetings to everyone here in the room and those watching us online as well. Today we'll explore some of the most interesting, challenging and inspiring questions around cloud computing from public sector practices, challenges in the Baltics and neighboring countries in Europe as well, and Finland as well, from public sector practices to digital resilience and cybersecurity. And let's take a moment to go through our agenda today. So we'll start with official opening, then we'll have a keynote speech we can rely on afterwards in discussion. Then we move into the first panel discussion, focusing on cloud computing in the public sector across the Baltic states. After that, we will have some lunch break in the restaurant on the first floor, so you can use elevator afterwards. And that could be a very nice break. I think following the break, we'll continue with two more discussions. This will go on security regulation, compliance, and cloud adoption and cybersecurity examples and incident examples. I promise this to be a very inspiring and thought-provoking day. And to officially open our conference, I now invite onto the stage the Minister of Smart Administration and Regional Development of Latvia, Raimonds Čudars. Mr. Čudars, floor and stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, good morning and welcome in Riga to the Baltic Cloud Forum 2025. It is a great honor to open this important conference, which brings together leading minds in cloud computing from the Baltics and Nordic countries, as well as experts from across the ACT industry and public sector. Cloud computing is a strategic enabler of innovation, efficiency and productivity in the public sector. From data processing systems to data-driven policymaking and AI solutions, cloud technologies are helping us reimagine how public institutions serve citizens. Yet, with opportunities come challenges. As we embrace cloud adoption, we must also confront the challenges of cybersecurity, regulatory alignment, and operational readiness. This year, we have taken important steps to strengthen our national cybersecurity. New regulation now set clear minimum standards for protecting our information systems and data centers. The upcoming state cloud regulation aims to reduce fragmentation, improve infrastructure quality, and ensure that critical resources can be quickly and securely exchanged in time of crisis. To support secure and efficient cloud adoption, the government is working to consolidate both public and private infrastructure. We are also embracing open source solutions. Two key regulations, General Technical Requirement for Information Systems and the upcoming state data processing cloud regulations, are central to these efforts. We are working to make it easier and safer for public institutions to access both private and public cloud services. Soon, they will be able to apply through a central broker. This will also give IT vendors a streamlined way to offer cloud platforms, virtual resources, and solutions to the public sectors. The approach simplifies service delivery and aligns with European digital strategy. Today's forum is a platform for open dialogue and collaboration. We will hear from Baltic public sector leaders who are navigating the complexity of cloud migration and from Nordic experts who will share best practices. We will engage with cloud service providers to explore practical solutions to security concerns. And we will examine how artificial intelligence powered by cloud is reshaping the way we govern. I am particularly proud that Latvia is hosting this forum. Our country is committed to building a smart administration, and it is named our ministry, one that's agile, secure, and citizen-centric. We believe that regional cooperation is beneficial to achieving this vision. Together, the Baltics and Nordics can lead the way in shaping a trusted, innovative digital public sector. Let this conference be a space for learning, sharing, and connecting. May it inspire new partnership, fresh idea, and bold actions. Thank you for being here. I wish you a productive and insightful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for laying out the Latvian strategy and for inspiring words. And you know, here comes one icebreaker from the journalists who are not so deep in cloud computing, but the quick show of hands. How many of you are already in the cloud? Please show. So it's almost everyone. But hold a hand if you know where the cloud actually lives, physically lives. Do you know? It's amazing audience. Almost everyone except Minister. He does not. Okay, super. But I think we will know more after this inspiring day, and we move forward. Now let's look beyond Baltic states to our close neighbor and longtime digital frontrunner. We are catching up, but still frontrunner, Finland. And we will hear about how Finland has adopted cloud solutions in the public sector. Lessons learned along the way. Kirsi Janhunen from Ministry of Finance of Finland. Please, Kirsi, stage is yours.
It's a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Kirsi Janhunen and I'm from Ministry of Finance. My mission is to promote cloud services in public administration. What I enjoy most in Ministry of Finance that it gives an overview of public sector. Finland's public administration is a broad, diverse, but unique today common challenges. We face and determination to find solutions together. Before I dive into details, I give you some overview of what I'm going to we'll cover today. I will start by introducing Finland public administration and the challenge we are facing. And after that, I will share lessons learned through our work in cloud services. These lessons are divided into 4 main tasks. First, by digitalization requires a new way of thinking. And then second, how security and data protection sometimes act as a barrier and also guide us. Third, how we need to build true resilience in our digital society. And finally, what sovereignty really means to us in practice. The Ministry of Finance oversees public sector ICT operations. Public sector in Finland can be divided in 3 parts: the states, well-being counties, and municipalities. Well-being counties and municipalities have self-government, but the entire public administration shares broad legislative framework. Legislation assigns various tasks to public administration, and the image shows the number of these tasks. In Finland, there is extensive cooperation across the whole public sector. That is one of our key strengths. What unites the public sector right now is our effort to tackle major challenges. In Finland, the economy has been growing more slowly than in other Nordic countries for quite some time. For a long period, Nokia and the forest industry were our shining star, but now we need to find a new kind of economic growth. Finland has high level of debt and our population is aging faster than in other EU countries. This poses significant challenges in managing the cost of healthcare and elder care. At the same time, the number of working age people is decreasing. Even though these challenges are tough, they also act as driver for change and development. We see that digitalization plays a significant role in the transformation. We also see that cloud services are the key factor in digitalization. Next, I will share some lessons we have learned from the perspective of cloud services. Change always involves uncertainty, but the greater risk lies in standing still. Many are dealing with aging environments that cannot be easily renewed. For some, the idea of an environment under their own control feels safer. Previously, it has been possible to physically visit and audit on-premises data center, but this is not necessarily possible with public cloud services. That is why it's important to clearly agree on the services, the security responsibilities, and how the security of the services can be verified. One aspect that stands out in the cloud services is risk management. Many are looking for more concrete tools to support their risk management efforts. In addition to security, many are concerned about costs. Cloud services are not automatically cheaper than on-premises services. Costs must be monitored and optimized. This requires more life cycle planning. When resources are limited, it becomes even more important to share good practices. Digital environments are increasingly networked. Services are produced by different actors, and growing a share of services involves multiple clients. In these environments, agreements and responsibilities are emphasized. We recognize that there is still much work to do in this area. Information security and data protection requirements often make some organizations to hesitate to adopt cloud services. 2 years ago, we carried out a project to understand why the public sector is not adopting cloud services as quickly as we thought. We found that many are concerned about information security and data protection. Finnish civil servants tend to rely on guidelines, recommendations, and criteria, as they provide a sense of security. At the same time, this can lead to overly literal interpretations that hinder the use of cloud services. We have established principles for cloud services, encouraging organizations to primarily use cloud services unless there are justified reasons to do otherwise. We have observed that criteria frameworks guide implementations. In Finland, several such frameworks can be used. We are now combining two criteria sets that relate to cloud services. However, we are expecting EU CS framework, European Union Cloud Services theme, to be applied. We are currently running a project aimed identifying obstacles to digitalization. In this project, we identified a section in the regulation on handling classified information that in some organizations it is interpreted in a way that restricts the use of cloud services. We are in a process of rewriting this section so that it is also more compatible with cloud services. When the regulation was originally written, the thinking was rooted in more on-premises world. For this reason, the text has needed to be updated. As digital dependency grows, the importance of resilience becomes more pronounced. When systems are more complex than a human can manage alone, we must ensure that the critical functions of society can withstand disruptions, errors, and cyber threats. Resilience means the ability to recover, quickly adapt to changes, and maintain operational continuity even when part of the system fails. We are increasingly relying on artificial intelligence to support services. Do we really understand its effects well enough? The most important thing is to identify which services are most critical to operations and assess their dependencies. Often we realize that in the end we are dependent on agreements. This is why it's important to plan backup arrangements for serious disruptions. In Finland's public administration, extensive training is conducted. It has proven to be an effective way to identify critical points. Ultimately, having a sufficient situational picture is one of the most important factors in maintaining resilience. Everyone is talking about sovereignty, but what are we even talking about? I haven't had a single work day this year without hearing the word sovereignty in some form. Everyone is talking about it. Service providers offer solutions, but do they really meet our actual needs? Do we really understand what we should need? In Finland, we are starting to build that understanding. Sovereignty in cloud services is not only about where the data is stored. It's about control, compliance, and competence. It's about ensuring that digital infrastructure serve the needs of society while respecting European values and protecting citizens' rights. As I mentioned earlier, we have a high expectation for the EU CS framework, as we hope it will facilitate the discussion around sovereignty. However, we cannot afford to wait too long. We must consider what sovereignty concretely means in national level. And that's why we are taking concrete steps. We are defining common national criteria that are aligned with EU requirements. Clear and shared criteria are needed so that sovereign cloud becomes something measurable and verifiable, not just a marketing term. This gives both public sector and organizations and suppliers a common language to assess compliance and reduces the risk of fragmented interpretations across different authorities. We are strengthening control mechanisms. Sovereignty requires that the public sector remains firmly in charge of its most critical information. This means improving technical controls such as key management and encryption, but also legal and contractual safeguards that ensure decision-making power stays with Finnish and European authorities, even when using global cloud providers. Using hybrid and multi-cloud models. Not all data is equal in sensitivity. By adopting hybrid and multi-cloud strategies, we can keep the most sensitive workload under tighter national or European control while still accessing the speed of innovation, scalability, and cost efficiency offered by global platforms. This balance is essential for both resilience and competitiveness. Investing in skills and negotiation models. Sovereignty cannot be outsourced. It requires our own capacity to make informed choices, to negotiate fair terms with providers, and to make complex environments responsibility. Building competencies in cloud architectures, security, building competence in security and contract management is just as important as technical solutions themselves. Finland is facing a challenges that are bigger than any single organization or law can solve. Our slow economic growth, aging population, and global uncertainties force us to rethink how we work and how we build resilience. Laws and criteria must evolve with technology, not against it. Regulation cannot remain static when the digital world is changing at such rapid pace. Laws, guidance, and criteria should be designed to enable innovation, not slow it down and create unnecessary obstacles. When rules evolve alongside technology, they provide a stable yet flexible foundation that guides organizations in a consistent way and ensures that new solutions can be safely adopted. Thank you. That is the perspective I wanted to share with you today. I wish you an inspiring conference, and you are welcome to send me a LinkedIn invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsi, for sharing Finland's experience, and I think we have information and topics we can rely on going in and diving in the next part of our conference discussions. And I would like to invite on the stage our next portion of people, actually. I'm honored to invite on stage Gatis Ozols, Deputy State Secretary on Digital Transformation, Latvia, Teenu Grunberg, Under Secretary for Digital Infrastructure and Cybersecurity, Estonia, and Tomas Misevičius, CEO, State Digital Agency of Lithuania, and Dmitris Nikitins, STO at Tech Company. So you can take your seats, choose freely, you know. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Labadiena. So we are ready. Warm up very shortly, folks. I would like to ask one very brief question. How would you rate your country's progress in cloud adoption on a scale from 1, very poor, to 10, brilliant? But very briefly, in one word.
Well, that's a tough call. Let's put it 5.
5, okay.
Very much in the center.
If Estonians say 5, I couldn't get to like to the 8 or 9. So probably I was thinking for 6 because I was taking into account the preparatory work we are currently doing. And
6, okay. Self-assessment 6. Yes. Dmitris, for Latvia.
Yeah, all the marks are going in compression with something. So if Estonia says 5, I would say that Latvia is around 4, 4.5.
I like that difference.
But initially,
yeah. There is a room to discuss. Very nice.
Initially, I was aiming for a 5, but we have to leave a room a bit behind.
Thank you. And Lithuania?
Yeah, so I need to say, I guess, more than all of them. But unfortunately, I would say it's maybe also 5, maybe 4, because numbers don't lie when we speak about adoption of the cloud. But we did some preparation. We are on a good trend. We have a good progress in Lithuania. So yeah, maybe 5, but with a good ambition, will be like 10 in a few years.
Okay, it's a good goal. We heard a kind of self-assessment, but now we can go a bit broader. You have a time to explain more how your country is doing. What is the current state of cloud computing in your country, and what solutions are being implemented, and how is the national cloud policy evolving? We heard about Latvian status during minister's speech, but let's start with Estonia then.
Yes, we are very much stressing now on cloud. And to be honest, there is one very depressive reason for that, and that's the resilience, and that's our eastern neighbor, unfortunately, which makes the cloud developments faster. And the reason is, I will probably have some time to explain closer. I think the next panel also will target these same things. But basically, now our aim is that any new development, of course, has to be cloud native. That's absolutely given. All the legacy stuff need to be re-engineered, rewritten to be cloud native as well. We have legislation in place that public cloud is allowed, so it's fine. The legislation-wise, we can use public cloud, but we do not in massively, but there are some services are there. But what we do now is that we are developing. We have the state cloud service or platform, let's say. Currently, it's like infrastructure as a service. It's pretty basic hardware close service, but we are now starting to develop it to the next stage. We create a platform as a service. So it's going to be a state cloud platform, and we expect that all critical services that we have will be migrated to this platform then as soon as possible. This as soon as possible, of course, means that it takes years probably, and it needs a lot of funds, which we don't have. So that is the status. But basically, yes, we can say, let's say 1/3 of the kind of service, public service is more or less cloud native now, but the rest, of course, are not, and that's a big problem.
Okay, Thomas, Lithuanian case.
I mean, in general, cloud or public
situation, how far you are on the way to get the Mark 10.
Okay. I've seen some reports, this report, the Digital Decade report. We are close to like 28 last year, maybe, or the year before. Last year it was maybe more than 30% adoption of the cloud in business, large business, small, medium enterprises. So, but the trend is good. I mean, each year, I don't know what happened maybe 3 years, 4 years ago, because numbers were like stagnating. But recently we were like increasing, we're having a progress like 10% per year increase in adoption of the cloud. So in general, I would say that yeah, we are on the right way. We will meet those digital decade targets easy, I guess, with that progress, 10% a year. So yeah, that's I guess a good trend. In public sector, it's a bit different story, because we have kind of interesting legislation which doesn't allow a full usage of the public cloud for critical systems. So I guess we will talk about legislations and all those obstacles we have later in this discussion. So yeah, there are some issues where we could improve in public sector, but what we do in public sector, we are building a hybrid cloud infrastructure with a multi-cloud, with multiple cloud providers. So we don't rely on one, and we don't rely on our national cloud we already have, an on-prem cloud. So it's a hybrid solution is our kind of goal. And we kind of, yeah, we have it already.
Latvian case, got.
Yeah, I think the reasons are why the cloud are getting traction also in Latvia is the same as like from Estonia explains, that if before it was like about innovation, efficiency, productivity, so now it's more and more about resilience, about possibility to have like critical services running out of the country or migrating them out of the country and so on. So this is one of the reasons why also we are looking on the hybrid model, how to use the cloud services in public sector. And of course, I think it's one of the biggest kind of tasks for a current ICT in government sector is to enable this migration towards cloud, because it's we were some like 20 years ago all modern new countries with nice shiny ICT infrastructures, and now we are getting at the point that we already have a legacy, and the legacy not always is compatible to the cloud solutions, and also the lack of the standardization of the ICT solutions, which are not like easy transferable to the cloud. So these are the things we have to take into account. And I listed some several aspects we have to take care of. Is first technical complexity. So we see that there's a lot of custom-made solutions in government, and you have to have this kind of migration strategy to the new technologies. Other technological competencies, we see that governments are quite fragmented, and now what we're doing in Latvia, we try to make it like a first step to consolidate all the government infrastructure into the competence center, so that there will be less responsible persons, and that we could have like quite competent persons running the national infrastructure, whether it's a public service, whether it's cloud infrastructure. And for this reason, we are also consolidating these resources in public cloud, like in 4 competence centers currently in Latvia. Because this decentralized approach, I believe it's not sustainable in long term. Then procurement practices as well. I think this is also things that we have to take into account, that if before the government was more like oriented around the CapEx, kind of buying of servers and stack and putting it under the desk. So now we have to learn new ways how to procure the cloud services. And it was like mentioned also by Finnish colleague, that when we come to the next question of digital sovereignty, the elephant in the room, we have to have like objectives, measures, how we can measure these things. And so it's again the new things what we have to learn. But I would say that we are currently in a good position to propel the government cloud adoption because of the already mentioned things by the minister. First is we creating those competence centers in the government. Then, of course, some institutions are already using cloud services, mostly for public kind of data, or for example, our digital agents or chatbot platforms are running on Azure Cloud Services, and there are some other examples. And also this regulation of government cloud sets some basic things that will help us to propel this. One thing is that we're setting the regulation for public cloud, then we're creating this national competence center or service broker under our digital agency. So it should somehow enable more quicker adoption of the cloud technologies. And we also say in this regulation, like openly, that a public cloud is okay if you comply to the requirements of cybersecurity and so on. So until this, the institutions were kind of not very sure, is it okay or not okay?
Okay, cloud first policy. Dmitry, is from industry perspective, how does Latvian government is doing right now?
Well, we see that we are going towards the right way. So basically, as Minister and Gatis mentioned, there are some legislation which are being prepared in order for private sector to step in. So we can participate in this government cloud model and provide the services. I would say that this is quite crucial from the resilience standpoint and efficiency standpoint of view, because for the private organizations, we have to innovate all the time. So we have to be on edge. That's our bread and butter. We have to earn the respect of our customers. And if something happens, so basically if we allow some downtimes, if we allow some breaches within our systems, that might be the end of our business. So we have to innovate. We have to make sure that our infrastructure is safe all the time. And that forces us to move forward, and that will assure that we will provide the most competitive pricing and most innovative technology for the government and other customers as well. So we see that there are a lot of new technology is coming up. For example, with AI. Some graphical compute powers have to be provided to train the models, and if we are looking at the cost, so one NVIDIA graphical card H200, which is being used to train AI model, costs more than 30,000 euros. The server costs around 250,000. That's one server for the AI. So in order for that investment to be profitable, you have to run the infrastructure all the time. And reusing that and sharing that infrastructure with the various customers can ensure that. Otherwise, the cost will be unbearable for one institution. And that's a good example how we can ensure that the cloud is most cost effective in that sense. If we are looking on the cloud adoption in a country as such, so we are improving tremendously as well. Large companies, for the large companies, cloud adoption in Latvia in the last 2 years grows with 25% rate. That's very good, and hopefully in the next couple of years we will catch the Europe's average rate of cloud adoption. However, the situation on a small and medium enterprise segment is not so sunny. So we still have to convince the decision makers that the cloud is not only the cost position that's essential for the business. Unfortunately, as the same as with cybersecurity, decision makers come to that realization only after something happens. So they experience the huge downtimes or some cybersecurity attack. Then they start to think, hey, maybe we need to improve our infrastructure because we lost tons of money, and it would be cheaper to select the cloud infrastructure in the first place. So situation, I would say, improving overall in Latvia. We are going in the right direction. So in the cooperation between the government and the private sector is the key.
Okay. You said that private sector is ready to step in. We know, for instance, in Latvia, we know that Latvia is building federated for state-managed for cloud infrastructure. How does it work together? Hybrid, state-managed clouds, private cloud, global cloud. What's the best way for public sector, for governmental information? Advantages, disadvantages. Then.
Yeah, there are many advantages and disadvantages. First, let me just comment that I've been in this role quite a short while. Before I worked as the CEO of the data center, Greenish data center, which is one of the biggest in Baltics. So I was in the center business. And we analyzed very carefully what the price is using the public cloud, let's say, versus then your own prem stuff. And honestly, it goes the way like you, if you own your own servers, it's like this. The more you need the power, you buy some more servers and you go like this. In cloud, you start very low. Even sometimes you can even get paid for starting from, and then, but then it goes up like whoo. So that is one thing. So we don't do it for a cost. I mean, it's not gonna work. It's not for cost. It's for flexibility and it's for resilience. Why we do it. Now, definitely you need to have a hybrid mix. So it has to be cocktail. You cannot rely on one or another. Now we are building this our own. We are like doing 2.0, 3.0 already. This state cloud. But the strategy we have adopted is that all the services, critical services of Estonia, e-services, need to be cloud native, and they should support both state cloud and one of the public clouds. So in case need be, you can actually move from one to another. You can even run in both, but I mean, that's probably too costly. Just to keep it like in hot mode in two. So basically, we should be able to move. And now what we have done is that we have identified the most critical services what we are running. So all the ministries, we made a research, all the ministries answered. Also from the like the security and all the aspects were taken into account. And of course, the threat picture, what we see from the eastern neighbor. And now we have the set of services. And we have we actually have a date when they should be cloud native. But honestly, I don't think it's doable because of the resources. We don't have resources to do it. Otherwise, it could be. But now, we at least what we do is that we extend, it's already done actually. So we have extended our state cloud abroad in Europe, to Europe. So we can run our own services, which are then there already. It's only a few there now in that state. But we can run it from there. And then some of them move first to the public cloud. Is it AWS or Azure? Preferably, or can be, of course, Google or Oracle, whatever. So if you run Oracle, you probably need Oracle Cloud.
Or some European.
Yeah, that's true. So it is a tough call how to do it. But for us, the main driver right now is the resilience, is a threat picture. And we have a clear roadmap now agreed, and the government has adopted it, that we do it. And we have a central agency who is the single point of trading public cloud. So any ministry, agency, anyone who wants to get AWS or Azure knows where to go, and this is the guys who buy it for you. And also they run the state cloud. So basically it's in one place. Everybody knows that this is the place you can get what you need.
Oh yeah, this is a question for Latvian and Lithuanian colleagues.
Yeah.
Advantages, disadvantages.
Yes, the concept is similar that we are currently with our new regulation and the new functions of the agency. We are setting up this cloud broker function into our agencies that will take care of both of the public side and also of the private side, and also do the procurement practices, the common for the government institutions. But if we take about advantages and disadvantages, I believe there's this public cloud that we are currently actually not very much such building. This is kind of legacy that we already had infrastructure. We just thought that, okay, we need to exploit this properly, not only for specific like a ministry or sector, but to make it available also for other ministries, so that those data centers which are already built within the government don't stay like half filled. So they would be like with standard service descriptions and all the things. So, but in parallel, of course, we have to have alternatives, and I believe for kind of both for the government taking into account resilience, also the taking into account that we are not so like large countries that would have self-sustainable kind of all the infrastructure. The main thing for us in context of resilience is to have options, to have different options, and to have a way how to switch between the local cloud solutions, also the public cloud solutions. And this is what we are trying to set in. So we still have, from the regulatory point of view, one missing piece. Currently, there is a regulation, information systems deployment and data center security requirements. They are under development currently. They run for the 3 rounds already in discussions between industry and public sector. Hopefully, the Ministry of Defense foresees that under this end of this year it will be adopted. So, and what this regulation, it will open the public sector to access the kind of private sector, also be a participant in providing services for public sector. So there will be a requirement standard that will be both apply for a public service kind of service providers or infrastructure providers.
Security?
Yes, security, the levels of security you need to deploy different levels of security for information systems. And also the same applies for the private sector. So if you can, from private sector, ensure this, so it's okay.
Thomas, same in Lithuania, or different approach?
Maybe a bit different approach. I mean, if I understood our colleagues correctly, I mean, in Lithuania we don't have a mix of private and public service providers providing IT services for public institutions. So our we have state-owned data centers. We have 5 of them. 2 of them are quite new. So this is state-owned, and yeah, we have my agency is kind of a state IT service provider for public institutions. So that part, in that part, we don't have a private institutions or private sector providing IT services. With public cloud, it's a bit a different story because public cloud is it's private business. So we have to have that mix of public service providers and private IT service providers. But unfortunately, as I said, we have a bit of a legislation issue that we can't host critical systems in a public cloud at the moment. So those must be hosted in state-owned data centers on-prem. So, and that brings some of the issues we have at the moment. But I guess we'll change that legislation because we are constantly reviewing our laws. So we'll do that, and the cloud adoption will be much quicker. But yeah, with our current approach, we can have our Ministry of Economic and Innovation, who is the main policy maker for all the digital affairs, had a very good kind of slogan this year to make an indestructible digital Lithuania, which sounds very kind of ambitious. And and we started already talking with them how to adopt or change some legislations to make that possible. We started with adopting the public cloud with some first of all the backups. For instance, we say that 100% of all the public institutions must have their backups in the cloud. We already had backups in our data center in NATO country abroad, Lithuania, to have to address that resilience question, especially when the war in Ukraine started. So, but we couldn't fit all of the public institutions there. So when we started with the cloud, we kind of have a goal for till the end of this year. So it's really close already till the goal to have 100% backups in the cloud. We're also piloting disaster recovery solutions to the cloud, and with some challenges, of course. At the end of this year, we'll have a working solution for that for a few of our registers to be able to switch over to cloud. Yeah, and also exploring high availability solutions as well. But I could.
Dmitris, do you have anything to add? So why to choose private cloud for public sector?
So if we are looking at the experience throughout the world, then examples are pretty different. So for example, in US, everything is being handled by private entities. They have FedRAMP program, which is a federal risk and authorization program where you can qualify and provide up to different tiers the services for the government. So from our perspective as a private company, of course, we see that we can provide all possible services and qualify for different security measures which government sets for the qualifications. And we are really happy that Latvia is going forward with the requirements which Gatis has mentioned. And from our side, we are eagerly waiting for that and to be able to understand how we can qualify for that. Private sector, as a private company, certify ourselves with, for example, PCI DSS certification, which is set by credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard to be able to deal with the credit card data, which is very high security requirements for the data centers. In Latvia, for example, there are 3 data centers which are Uptime Institute Tier 3 certified. One is fully constructed and certified, and 2 are being constructed right now. And all 3 are in private holding. So we are in several times we have heard that resilience have been mentioned. And for us, the start of the war in Ukraine was immediate call to action as a critical infrastructure holder as well. So basically, beforehand, the geo-redundancy and resilience was like having 2 completely independent data centers on the different banks of Daugava River. So basically, one data center with independent power supply and optical connections, and the second one on the second bank. Now we understand that's not the case. And in 2022, we made adjustment to our services, to our infrastructure. Now, for example, our cloud and our services are distributed outside the Latvia as well. We have extension for our cloud in Germany, so we have to think about that too. So that's not only our core business, but the resilience of our customers is important as well. So from our perspective, of course, we can ensure that all the services can be provided from the private company side. But for each government, that's a risk assessment, and each government has to decide what kind of data they are willing to hand over to the private companies and which are not. But from our side, we can ensure that we can handle everything and provide maximum security.
What kind of data? It's a very good question. But before, maybe we could ask for audience to make some questions. Are you ready to ask for our panelists? Who wants to be first? You get some comments or remarks or questions? You want to take time to think about that. No, you have a question. Please go ahead, and we'll give you a mic. And please introduce yourself. That would be very nice.
Ilze Morāna-Anspoka from Bank of Latvia. My question is about confidentiality and GDPR compliance, because resilience is good, availability, integrity may be, all data are available all time, but what about confidentiality? Is it an issue or already solved?
In a cloud.
In the cloud, of course.
Yeah, who wants to be first to answer?
I can answer then first. Yeah, that's a very important question. How we have solved the problem, not solved, but how we have arranged the setup is that the public cloud is allowed for public services to be run. It probably goes to the banking as well. But every agency need to evaluate the risk. And of course, they need to look at the data sets. So there maybe for certain data, you need to have some kind of hybrid solution. That data, let's say some data you keep in a country or in state cloud, but the application itself can be run on public cloud. So you need to assess it. So we have generally made the risk assessment, everything for the public clouds, and this is available to all agencies and all ministries. But on top of this, they need to assess their own set of data. For example, the Ministry of Defense doesn't use public cloud, probably for a good reason. But that's their own kind of logic. Their risk assessment doesn't allow it, so they have different solutions how they do it.
I think the risk assessment is a key for that, but I think this is also the biggest kind of issue for government institutions, because institutions are not keen to do the risk analysis. They better have like the lowest possible risk or avoid this doing this analysis in a safe way. But if we speak about this dish sovereignty, there are different properties. You have to take a look this data. We can look at data autonomy or data processing practices. Then we legal power of jurisdiction. This also have to be taken into account. Who can access and under which jurisdiction you run this service, or it's European jurisdiction only, or there's some other jurisdiction that could impact your services. About the technologies and operations, there are a lot of things that you have to take into account in your risk analysis. But I think it's about it's hard to do when institutions are small and they lack the competency. So it's very important to have those competence centers, which would be as an assistance to the ministries which are responsible for the business, would help them do this risk analysis. Otherwise, the institutions are not very keen to do this.
Okay, you want to add?
Yeah, just a few cents from my side. Yeah, I see it as also as a part of all the security measures we do. So in Lithuania, we have kind of we have a system classification, and let's say systems which are not very critical. They can be hosted in private data centers or in cloud in such case. Another thing is that when we implemented that hybrid cloud infrastructure, we first of all started with the secure architecture. It should be secure by design. And we agreed that secure architecture with our Ministry of Defense, our core network agency, our National Cybersecurity Center. So we kind of believe that all the security measures we implemented are sufficient for the data we are going to be hosting there. So this is kind of, I see it as a part of all the security measures to ensure that confidentiality is not breached in our case. So.
Okay, please.
Well, from our side, I can say that, of course, the risk assessment is very important, but GDPR is very strict, and GDPR compliance, cybersecurity compliance is things which we are not discussing. So that goes by design. We have to ensure that our customer data is safe, is unbreachable. Otherwise, we will be out of business. And of course, each entity should make its own risk assessment before providing or storing the data on the outside their infrastructure. But from our side, we know that all the data stays, and we can ensure that within the European Union, and we know what risk measurements should be taken to ensure that the data stays secure and according to all European laws.
Okay, more questions? Yeah, please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Siim. I'm in the next panel, but what I wanted to ask is that although yes, when we are talking about cloud in the context of public cloud service providers, all of the major ones claim that yes, they are GDPR compliant. Data, everything is within European data boundaries and etc. But still, we do have a residual risk of cross-Atlantic, let's say, data confidentiality agreements, US Cloud Act, and etc. So this is something that affects us regardless, even though I know that AWS and Azure are putting a lot of effort into trying to build out the sovereign options of their cloud offerings, which are probably a lot more expensive than the big clouds. How is that part affecting your risk assessments or service designs?
Please, who wants to be first?
Yeah, I can take it. That's a good question, and that's a very important one. Those days, that is true. Nobody in Europe can be 100% sure that those hyperscalers who are providing the service to us don't switch it off in some case or someday, or if they got a request from Washington or something. Its probability is very small, let's say, not zero, but very small, very small. But still it's there. The other thing is, of course, the data sovereignty, which is, yes, as you mentioned, the Azure and AWS both are building, as we speak, new data centers, which is totally sovereign to Europe. They say there is even management is European. The companies established in Europe, it doesn't take any orders from US whatsoever if they come. So that is all good. And just last week, I spoke with high officials of European Commission who are dealing with those cloud hyperscalers. Basically, they said they don't have any reason to believe that the data is leaving Europe. So let's say if you speak about sovereignty, the data itself is fine. As long as, of course, maybe there is some kind of special order from Washington, but let's leave it for now. The data is there, it's secure. But now, what comes to the metadata, which is, for example, you have a Teams call, in Microsoft Teams call, with your colleague somewhere, but actually the data, the log data that this call happens, goes around the world. So, and it's a good reasons also. Basically, this is used for the cybersecurity analysis and the pattern recognition if there is any anomalies and stuff like this. So it's not a bad thing only. But the fact is, and it's still leaving Europe. So the fact that I have a call with my colleague in next door, maybe. So there are questions which still European Union level they are dealing with. But for us, why we have adopted this double setup, that we have this state cloud has to be good platform, flexible platform, is exactly the reason that we cannot those days rely 100% on public cloud to get the resilience, the territorial resilience. Let's say if we lose a control of our data centers in our territory, what we do is we need to run those critical services still. And that's why we have a double setup, so the hybrid setup. It's a state-owned cloud and one of the public clouds for every service, so that gives a better resilience.
Thank you.
Yes.
Guts.
I believe this sovereignty aspect is not like a binary thing. It's not like a black or white, whether you have or you don't have. As we spoke, it's about like different kind of dimensions under which you have to look. What are the practices and the legal context of the specific practice? For example, the current European Commission has issued a procurement for cloud services for the sovereign cloud. But as we spoke also the previous week, it's not about that they are relying on the kind of branding of some of the cloud providers of this EU sovereign, like a branding and so on. It's about the practices and it's about the legal requirements. And I believe we are not yet there to use such kind of frameworks in our, I believe, in our this daily risk analysis. But it is that you could actually have a spectrum of service providers with different kind of levels of sovereignty, and then depending on your risk assessment, you can choose one or other. Because when we speak about public cloud providers, it's not about only hyperscalers coming from US. There are also some US cloud providers which could be used, and there are some risks which I know they also have like a different risk, this kind of structure. But for this reason, I think we need to apply such kind of measures where cloud service, where we, as a public sector, for example, issue procurement, when we can rate those service providers or services according to those criteria, and do across the, then again against our risk analysis, do this kind of based on the case on scenario, we can choose for the proper for the provider for the proper service.
Any thoughts on that?
Can't agree more. Actually, I fully agree with Tom and others on that matter. In our case, maybe a bit, we will have not one single option as a public cloud service provider, but 3, 4. So we'll be able to choose depending. And we already have a contract with a major of them, so we'll be able to choose where to host depending on the risk, on the costs, on the other things, political things. Orders from Washington, as Tony said.
Okay, Dmitris?
It's kind of hard to predict what happens with your data if there's a black box in front of you. So basically, in case of hyperscalers, you you don't really see how the data is flowing. There are some mechanisms how you can track the data and so on. Of course, the last resort is to believe that your data is being used according to the agreement, so it's not being transferred outside the European Union and stays in the data centers within the European Union. Of course, you have to understand what data are you sharing and putting in different cloud models. If it's very sensitive data, then it should be closer to your environment, and you should have more control of this data. Or you should choose the service providers who are fully allocated in Europe. I believe that hyperscalers are trying to do the best thing they can and follow the rules very tightly, because that's their business. And if something goes wrong, they may be out of business, well, at least in Europe. Of course, different circumstances may appear. So Washington was mentioned several times already. But at the moment, we have to believe that our agreements are being followed, and we'll evaluate what data are provided to which service provider.
I hope we will hear from some hyperscalers in the second part of our conference, what's in the black box. But you have more questions? Yeah, please.
Hi. I have a question to Mr. Grunberg. Basically, as far from Latvia and Lithuania, there are state-owned data centers where state cloud is, of course, hosted. But how about Estonia and experience in Estonia? So you mentioned that all the governmental institutions should use state-owned cloud. But the question is, this cloud is hosted where? Is it hosted in a state-owned data center or in private data center? What's the situation with that?
The state cloud is in both. We have state-owned data centers, and we are using the private data centers. The one I used to work, the Greenest data center is one, Telia is one we're using, so the state cloud is there as well. So it's hosted from there. Also, we have it in Luxembourg, where we have a data embassy, which is actually many years already we are making backups of the critical data there. Now we have extended the cloud there as well, and we extended it further. So that is the setup we do right now.
Okay, more question? Yes, there is a hand, 2 hands. And third one.
Good afternoon or good morning. Excellent panel, thank you. Helmut, Nostras Limited, UK, Latvia. I have a question. Open source software versus commercial software. We know that licenses sometimes can be funny, and Oracle can be sometimes very expensive. I see some smiles. If you could comment your approach on them. Thank you.
I can start.
Yep, Thomas.
I wish we used more of open source software in public institutions, but unfortunately we are kind of not that far there. So my answer will be short. Whenever it's possible to use open source, we use that, but not that much actually. So.
More answers? More comments?
So the open source is the way to go. So basically, if you have the possibility to choose and you conduct the security checks and so on, you should use the open source if possible, because that provides the optimization of your business efficiency and so on. You should read the license agreement, which open source software has as well. what happens if some entity decides to bring it private. So basically, there are numerous examples when there were open source projects developed by one particular company, which has reached critical mass and adoption, and decided that, hey, we want to bring this open source software private, and then you start paying for that, and that's the case. But overall, if there is a strong community behind that, or number of companies, and license agreement is good, you have conducted all the security checks, and it checks all the marks, yeah, you should definitely go for it.
Okay, go ahead, please.
May I just one comment on the same? Yes, the open source, of course, is important, also part of the mix what we use. But quite often the workplace is asked, why don't you use open source like open office stuff? And actually there are, we have looked at around the world, so how the governments do. And there are few who are using the open source stuff there, but there are quite few who has started but then closed it in some point of time. And usually the reason is that, for example, generally people use Microsoft Office stuff, and they send your file to the state agency. And now we have this open source fine. Usually it works fine, but some macros may not work. Some stuff may not work. You know, if you have some very difficult pivot tables or whatever, so you may start to have a difficulty. And so, as was mentioned, if you have this society who are around the open source, who really develops it constantly and rigorously, has a, like they follow what let's say Microsoft is doing, they do more or less the same, or even ahead in some cases. That's fine, but you cannot be sure. So this is one aspect. The other aspect, what we do, for example, with our, we use like a middleware data exchange layer. We call it X-Road. And this is state developed. Actually, we now have a consortia together with Finland and Iceland. So we have a non-profit organization who owns this X-Road software. It's open source actually. It's open, but we run it. This is our central layer of data exchange in all those 3 countries, and that works really fine. So anybody who wants to have this open source, you're welcome to join. So.
Yeah, okay. maybe just to, I think that this workplace application open source is the hardest thing to do because it's very emotional and everyone has to say about that. And we see that currently Denmark is trying to figure out something because of their relationships with some announcements regarding Greenland. But in our case, workplace applications, for example, are not the case, not the focus. But what we see, for example, in our information system technical requirements, it's stated that we favor the open source solutions, and it should be revised as an option before deploying some information systems or technologies. And what we see in last years that, for example, the Postgre is getting traction in public sector, and also the national portal now runs in a Drupal. It was before like running on some other platforms. So we see that in some cases in those back office kind of applications, it's like more applied.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, next question. Introduce yourself and please.
Hello, Seppo Kalliamäki from Amazon. So if anybody don't know, we are pro-cloud. Thank you for very interesting topics and discussions. There are multiple motivations to go to public cloud, like cost savings or innovations or productivity or security. And for years I've been trying to tell so many countries in Europe that if you don't choose one, you can't have the others. You have to have a motivation, you have to have a vision why you're going there. Seems like you have chosen the security, the resilience and the sovereignty. And I do congratulate you because it's a good starting point, even though it might have come from outside the need. But there was something, Mr. Osels, you said that interested me a lot. And if you could elaborate about the sovereignty and resilience, you have to have metrics. You have to be able to measure it. Could you tell me a little bit more what you mean by it?
Yes. This is what I mentioned, that currently I know that the European Commission is conducting the procurement for sovereign cloud services. And as I mentioned, they created a framework how to evaluate the sovereignty from 8 dimensions. And those 8 dimensions were like a technological sovereignty, legal sovereignty, data sovereignty, some other ones. So the first one, for example, the legal one, under which jurisdiction the service will be provided, which countries have like an impact on your service, on data sovereignty, where the data will be located. So it's not. It was also mentioned in colleagues from Finland that it's not about like a data storage just, but it's one of the dimensions where it's stored, whether it's in Europe, whether it's like on-prem, whether it's somewhere outside. Then it's about the possibility for us to kind of work on this technology or change the technology, the portability. So there are some 8 dimensions, and they rate those services across those dimensions. So I think it's a good starting framework how to evaluate this sovereignty like objectively. Yes, and we are not yet using, but it was like I think as a know-how that European Commission is trying to approach this.
Okay, thank you. More question? Yeah, back there. Hi, can you pass a mic? Hello. Yes. Yeah, there is a question.
Hello. I am an international student in RTU in my final year, so I am interested in how to integrate software with cloud services. So my question is rather simple. What are the main obstacles that you are having when migrating from traditional services to cloud? Is it the budget or the regulations or the technical expertise? Can you tell us? Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
In our case, it's both budget and time. So usually you need a lot of time to, if you have a legacy systems, which we have, I think everybody has more or less. I don't know who has more, but at least, so there are legacy systems which are not cloud native at all. So when you rewrite those to support the microservices and kind of being a kind of modern way of doing things, then of course the cloud nativity comes, but it comes with a cost. So it's not an easy task. It's very expensive task. It may be tens of millions to write only one service to rewrite it. So that is one thing. Another thing is of course time. It's just usually it's quite comfortable to skip. Let's say you look at this. Oh, it takes several years to do. I'll start next year. And then it moves and moves and moves. And I don't have money as well, so let's see how it goes. And then the legacy systems get even more legacy. So they get very old. And there are many systems we have which are very important actually from kind of the state service perspective. But nobody even wants to touch it, because if you touch it, it breaks. So if you, let's say, the politics comes and say, now you need to pay a pension, a little bit setup have to be changed, and this may be so dangerous to the system stability. So that's probably. So the cost is actually very, very important part. But from the other side, we have seen that some services which are relatively modern, but not cloud native, it's only, I don't know, 10,000 maybe 100,000, no more. To write it to the kind of that it's kind of supports the cloud, works in the containers and stuff like this. So it's not that bad for all services. Only the old legacy stuff. This is a problem.
Thank you.
I believe also it's about the prioritization of the needs, because for the business they always would like to have the invest in added value things in their systems, not like. Of course, you can value also the risks and the risk aversion, but the driving force mainly is added value and business needs. So it requires some extra effort to devote the money for the technological kind of upgrade, and probably this should be taken into account also for us as a ministry responsible for this. To have maybe it's a separate program or that you devote specifically for this reason money. Otherwise, it's very hard to motivate institutions. But what we see, there's other trends that, for example, for some standard applications or support functions, that more and more government institutions are migrating to the software as a service kind of model. So you don't need to hold this technological stack in your institution, but you just use a service like for accounting, for human resource, and another function. So for some functions, it's like automatically also happens with the life cycle of development.
Okay, Thomas, you have to add
yeah,
something.
I fully agree with colleagues that budget time and actually expertise another third thing which I guess our public organizations are missing to easier and quicker adopt cloud services. We conducted we usually do that also surveys maybe twice a year and asking all the public institutions about many things about IT services we are providing, and we included public cloud questions in the recent survey, and we ended up like we were kind of asking like 300 organizations. Many responded, and many of them, tens of them, wanted to public cloud services. And when we already started working with them, that shortlist even narrowed to, I don't know, we could count on fingers of one hand the number of organizations which are truly ready to go to the cloud, which have their kind of business need or organization need to go there. We have budget, we have time, and all the timing is right. So yeah, obstacles are pretty kind of same in all organizations. Yeah, costs as well, because yeah, as Tony mentioned, we have like tons of applications which are really old and based on old technologies running in VMs, not containers but. For quite some time, we already have in our even on-prem cloud services for our organizations to make those cloud-ready applications. We have container platforms, Tanzu, OpenShift, you name it. So everything is there. So we just we put even those in our public IT service catalog. So organizations can develop those cloud-ready applications for quite some time, but still time, budget. Those are the obstacles.
Yeah, the cloud is not always efficient way. It's not always very cheap way. Mm-hmm. What's your approach in every different country, in every different company, maybe, to use one or another technology? To choose one or another.
Yeah, in peacetime, if you look at the cloud, it gives really the flexibility. For example, you are like, I don't know, you run the application for the elections. We have elections coming up, that's why I mentioned it. So let's say we have it in cloud, and you need a huge resource for a few days to run when the election happen. And then you don't actually run it at all, almost. So if you buy all the servers for the peak load, it's expensive solution. So it's much better to have it's a cloud-based, you can just have a resource immediately up and immediately down, and you don't need it. In those instances, the cloud is perfect solution. But if you have, of course, you run the, I don't know, the kind of the AI, for example, which is usually loaded 100% of the time, then it's a question mark if the cloud is the right place to be. Of course, there are already this kind of this providers, so actually you can get AI resources as well from the cloud. So now it's like a new trend there. But yeah, maybe that's in a nutshell.
Okay. Other stories?
Yeah, I would look at it. I mean, if you calculate, is it really less expensive to run in the cloud? I guess it depends, and it really depends much. I've seen stories where it was more expensive than running in an on-prem cloud, or even less expensive compared. So, but I would look into this in a maybe different way of the costs not having the systems running at all. For instance, if let's say we have a data center downtime and we don't have kind of possibility to run anywhere, so we need to cloud to make those systems switch over to cloud and to run there. So what would be the cost of not having systems at all? So, but some recent examples when we Tony mentioned the elections. We have maybe a bit different story regarding, for instance, GPU resources. We invested much in, as the AI solutions are training, we invested much in GPU resources on our on-prem cloud. And those are already kind of 100% already allocated and used by organizations which are developing those systems using GPU resources. And part of that survey I mentioned, we kind of we've seen that we already have like a queue of other organizations who want also GPU resources, and procurement process will take like a year to get those resources in our on-prem data centers. Thanks, now we have public cloud and we can run those workloads there if, of course, policies allow to run those systems there. So yeah, it's kind of I will look into this way. Like we need that for DR, we need that for peaks when we need those resources. So. Yeah. It's not necessarily cheaper in all the times.
Okay, Dmitry's how to make cloud service cheaper and more efficient than other options?
As mentioned before, so cloud is most efficient when there's a constant need on scale up or scale down resources. So if you are running the same compute power all the time, it's better to choose the private cloud. And save some costs. If you have the peak times like elections, or you have, for example, for public television, you have the huge broadcast coming up, I don't know, Latvian hockey, ice hockey team plays, then you have to have the offload to the cloud where you can scale up, gain those resources for the short period of time, and afterwards just shut it down. But you know,
what if Latvia and Lithuania playing basketball?
Well, it doesn't.
Cloud is okay?
Cloud is perfectly fine.
Depends
so.
Who is winning. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this year we've seen a lot of different huge sport events, and we've seen that cloud performed very good, and scaling up the applications was quite easy. But as mentioned before in a previous question, your system have to be ready for the cloud. So you have to have microservice-based architectures, otherwise it won't work. And that's one of the problems right now, that not all organizations are ready to utilize the cloud efficiently. For example, we have started to use Kubernetes in 2019, and we thought, oh, that's quite great technology. And in 2020, we decided that, hey, we can offer that to our customers. Majority of our customers didn't know what Kubernetes even mean in 2020. Now we see that it's the microservices and all kind of this kind of services are getting traction, and the customers choose that as a first options. Before that, that wasn't even a topic for our customers. So. Slowly, we start to migrate our legacy systems to the new type of architecture, and we can utilize the cloud more efficiently than on-prem solution. But of course, for huge systems, hybrid solutions might be the best option.
Okay.
Yeah, just that I think that it depends on, and you have to take a look on the long run as well, because when you look at this kind of service price, then it could like be comparable, or you can have like a lower price when you run within the government. But then if you take I know 5-year, 10-year shot, the total cost of ownership, take into account all the investments, all the competencies you have, then it might shift this kind of efficiency, and probably. It's also important on the government side. Of course, we need some part of that to run within the government as a private cloud, but again, it must be constructed in an efficient way, not that like we have a lot of those sites, a lot of each institution is doing that, so you must have to do it efficiently, and then you can wait out in the long run what are those options. And for some specific needs, when you have to have those like spikes to cover, then the proper way probably is to go to the public cloud, not to use the construct within your government side.
Okay, got one more question regarding resilience. We read it in Latvian media recently that during the night of August 6 to 7, Latvia experienced an external ransomware cyber attack. As a result, several information systems in the cultural sector became unavailable. According to the Cultural Information Systems Center, the data is currently being restored from backup copies. And some pirates were demanding some payment to help to restore. What's the current situation? Could you comment on that?
I heard that that they are still like doing some final things to bring everything up again, but I don't have like specific details on the case. So need to be the Cultural Information Systems or National Library here.
Okay, they're still demanding some payment.
No, I don't know about that. No.
And how much you don't know?
No.
Just you want to know how valuable this cultural information is. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
No,
question
probably
about,
if we have backup copies, so it's not a big issue because you can. Yeah, but I know about this specific demand. I don't know in details.
Okay, we will speak about similar maybe incidents in a second part of our discussion. One more question I would bring. We have some minutes left. Could the Baltic states benefit from a kind of joint cloud strategy? How would it take to make this work or not? Is it the way to go, or it's too late or too early to speak about? Dmitris.
In theory, I would say definitely yes. Economies of scales always work better. So combining the resources, you could better utilize the human capital. You can utilize the physical resources, and of course, dealing with the vendors. The big guys always get bigger discounts. So if you combine all three country resources, that might bring you additional discounts. In practice, I would say that this would be a very difficult thing to do because it requires a lot of policy alignment between the countries, and we see that in each country there, I think that the internal problems, how to agree between ministries, between agencies, and so on. And we are not mentioning three countries here together. So in theory, yes, it might bring very good efficiency in practice.
Representatives of the countries?
Yeah,
Estonia?
definitely. I think always the cooperation and resources pooling is good. But as I said, it's not easy to find exactly how the synergy is there. I think even what we need even more in cooperating is that we start to exchange more data. So let's say kind of the data which you can, let's say you can use your recipe to go to the medical care in other country and stuff like this. So I think that is even more important at this point. We have many options to cooperate more than we do. But definitely buying together some resources, it could be worth to look at sometime.
It could be, but
I would say also it's yes or no, yes and no. Yes, theoretically, and in a practical way. I think that there are some dimensions we could take a look. I don't believe that we could create like a single strategy because already we have like a national strategy, then EU strategy. And I do believe that we will get together to have like a regional Baltic cloud strategy. But regarding procurement practices, it could be at some point, for example, because we have an examples in the health sector, yes, that there are some common procurement practices. Probably if we find out that we need to get some hyperscaler location here in the region, so there would be no other way how to get it unless we are like as a teaming partners. The other thing that it's still unused potential, I think, is that colleagues from Estonia already are like kind of, we have like discussions for years that software as a service kind of that we have like these applications that could be used as a shared service, whether it's like I don't know data transition or whether some other, so we could collectively develop platform solutions that could be used by our country. So I believe that it could be more like a realistic way how to perceive. And then on technological stack, there is an Azure initiative going on. Currently, it's Eurostack called, yes, that European Union would like to have this digital sovereignty development with the heading of Germany, France, Italy, some other countries to work together to build up this European technological stack. And I think we would be like in context of this cooperation.
Okay, Thomas?
Same, I guess. In theory, it sounds good. I mean, because we all Baltic countries share same kind of, as we see, same goals. We have same approach, more or less same progress in adopting cloud or having national cloud. So it makes sense having that. But in practice, I have some skepticism. But good thing is that in the middle of October we have a meeting here in Latvia, actually, of our digital agencies, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So I guess that would be one of the questions we could actually practically talk how that would work. And in Lithuania we have kind of good examples, not in maybe public cloud or other things, but let's say in Gigafactory, AI Factory, where we cooperate with Poland, other countries, Latvia, Estonia, and things can be done together. So we have those examples. So it could work in public cloud and as well, I guess. Time will show.
Okay, I see. We have time to wrap up, some couple of minutes. So one last question, quite briefly. Looking back, if you're looking back on your cloud journey, I'd say one do and one don't do to your neighbors and colleagues. Who's ready to start?
That's a tough one.
Sorry.
We need to think over the lunch.
Easy one for the lunch, you know. But you can choose maybe just one part or nothing to say. It's good for me. Okay, one don't do.
Maybe one don't do is that don't wait until you come up with the proper strategy for cloud. I think that is very important to have.
Thank you very much, Guts.
No, more push for the standardization to ensure the portability, I think.
Thank you. Dimitris?
I would say one do is most certainly a think in the long term. So create a strategy and see how it goes at least 5 years in the future on the cost side and so on. We've seen a lot of different examples that someone is jumping in on the cloud journey and the main message is cloud first, everything will be in the cloud, but without proper implementation, without the strategy and thinking ahead. So the cost side is unbearable in a couple of years. So think for the future, plan carefully, and the cloud will be big helper in your IT journey.
Thank you. Thomas?
What I do differently, I guess, a few years ago I would kind of put that into legislations to use cloud to build cloud native applications, cloud ready applications. So we needed to do that maybe years ago, not to be in this situation when we are talking about going to public cloud, but we are still with legacy system. So yeah. We needed to do that a bit in the past.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your experience, inspiring discussion, actually. Tomas Misevičius, Dimitris Nikitins, Gatis Ozols, Sten Grunberg. Thank you very much. Really good discussion. Now we have a lunch break, 1 hour. So lunch is served on the first floor. You can take elevator, have a nice lunch and good discussion. We'll follow in 1 hour, please. Have your time. And the next panel looks at digital resilience, a topic that has become critical for both governmental organizations and enterprises. The central question is, can we afford not to use the public cloud? And joining me on stage are Siim Vene, State IT Center Service Manager for Public Cloud Services Estonia, Evi Staube, a board member, Latvia State Radio and Television Center. You can choose seats free. Mike Kosse, project co-lead, IPCEI, Next Generation Cloud Infrastructure and Services, SAP. This is about some European Union project. And Ratko Mutavdzic, Public Sector Government Industry Advisory Lead, representing Microsoft. Thank you very much. So we are ready to begin. So, very shortly, warm-up question. If you had to convince one skeptical policymaker to adopt a cloud just for resilience, what could be your one key argument? Ratko.
Well, not all the stuff that you have are equally valued, right? So you have stuff that you care more about, less, and then the more you care about the things, you want to have a different methods or mechanisms how to protect them, and that would be the path of discussion.
And she will listen to you. Okay, Sim.
Well, it depends, obviously. But when we are talking about cloud, are we talking about private clouds or public clouds or cloud in general?
You can choose. It's a warm-up question.
Warm-up question. Yeah. Obviously, I'm like thrown in with the wolves that I'm only one from the public sector here, and. Okay. Terrific. But well, all jokes aside, then sometimes you can't afford to build your own cloud around the world. That the public clouds are easily designed for that.
Okay.
That could be one of the use cases.
Thank you. Evi Staube.
If just in one sentence, then basically it's a trust. It's you should obviously trust and trust to professionals who have eaten the bigger ones and the smaller ones, all kinds of clouds, private clouds, public clouds, whatever. We have eaten like a bunch of salt, of food salts in Latvian, right? In many years, starting from data centers, disasters, bigger, smaller, whatever issues, redundancy, etc. So basically, it's about the trust.
Thank you. And Mike?
I think this morning someone said you cannot risk your trust. So you have to invest in the latest technology and in the best people to earn the trust, to keep the trust. So I think the expert level you can expect from, let's say, serious providers has to be justified and typically is justified.
Thank you very much. Now, a broader question to everyone. Let's put it this way. What has been done so far to improve resilience of cloud infrastructure in your country, Estonia, Latvia, in Europe, in the world, from the perspective of your organization? And I would start with Sim. Yeah, Estonian perspective. What has been done so far to improve the situation regarding resilience?
Well, what we have done already is to try to support the service owners or service managers from the standardization perspective, do some of the heavy lifting for them when it comes to certain parts of, let's say, risk assessment, vendor validation, some central procurements. Also, what we are preparing is, how to call it, national security or configuration standards for the public cloud service providers, so that we're trying to do this foundation where they can operate without having to deal with the complexity of is my deployment GDPR compliant, or is my solution local security standard compliant, and etc. So this is something that we have done already that would hopefully ease up their journey to have resilient services, or offer, at least to be able to offer resilient services.
Thank you. Evis, representing Latvian Radio.
Yeah, I'm representing the company which is 101 years old. The heritage is radio and television, but cloud is something else. We are very proud providing like legacy services like radio, television still. But about the cloud, it's okay. It's not very new thing. Some say that it's a vapor somewhere in the skies, like a cloud. Seriously, again, it's important. It's important to educate the customers who wish to migrate to the cloud, and it's for many customers still it's a journey. If you go into like a bit in technology, so it's pretty easy about the cloud native applications. But if you're talking about legacy applications, that's not easy at all. So it's a journey together with the customer. And in terms of resilience of the cloud, we are, as a company, and also we're spreading this message that especially in latest geopolitics situation, we have to talk about high availability within a country, or we can extend it to Baltics. Sometimes we call it Baltic Island, right? With a number of outside connections. And yeah, for example, as a company, everybody should remember the broken cable this spring in February. So it was just a big example. Nothing stopped, so the public didn't feel any like impact. Everything continued to work, but everybody understands in telcos that the number of connections is limited, right? So this means that we have to maintain the high availability within Baltics. Yeah, we are discussing maybe to share the connectivity between the countries. So, for example, to put one small piece of cloud in Estonia or in Lithuania, vice versa, to raise the availability again. And one important thing is, as far as we know, none of the big vendor clouds, the big ones, none is physically presented in Baltics, physically in data centers. Somewhere else, okay. If connection works, if internet is unbroken, it's okay. In a peacetime, it's okay. But now, in this situation, we really have to think about the local availability.
Thank you. Mike?
So, I don't know, some of you may not know SAP. It's one of the few European global companies on business software. So I think we have a lot of customers who trust us very sensitive business data on their personnel, on their material, on their finances. So for us, it starts when we develop software. So there's a complex life cycle and a lot of monitoring. And then how it's operated, obviously, as you just mentioned, that you have numerous availability zones. So if something is down, I mean, we experience attacks every day, some of them very serious. But if you Google, you won't find many successful attacks against us because it's so we cannot lose that trust. So we have to invest a lot in this process and how we handle customer data. And I think this is a very high currency for at least the series of providers among us. So it's a journey, it's a challenge, it's continuously ahead of us.
Thank you. And from Microsoft perspective, Ratko?
I think Mike started it properly in a way that, you know, to become serious in this one, you have to be resilient by yourself. All our architectures and platforms are built in a way that actually they can sustain different types of problems, right? And if something happens, it's highly visible, right? Like suddenly around the world, you would see something which you try to mitigate and work with and so forth, right? So that's a big learning. The second thing is also this kind of resiliency in the different contexts, right? So one of them would be geopolitical thing, which is happening currently where the countries are looking at how to protect the assets that they have. So resources, basically data and information systems and so forth. And we see that resiliency discussion is going two-way. The one would be, okay, how do I build something which is self-sustainable, but I still want to, from the risk perspective, I want to have the option to move that somewhere else and then maybe run it from over there. And it also works if I go, that was also mentioned by Avis, if I'm running something in the cloud, right, and then I want to move it locally for a reason, how do I do that, right? So how do I see this cloud continuum in a very flexible way, right, so that I can operate, manage, and control resources that I have.
Is it a problem for resilience, what Avis said, that if big global providers don't have cloud here in Baltics?
Well, big cloud service providers will not have their data center presence in Baltics.
But is it a problem? in terms of resilience?
Well, perhaps. Because when we are talking about basically government business continuity and the public clouds in the same context, then obviously we would have those connectivity risks to outside of the Baltic island, and if you have your really resilient government services working on the public cloud and your connectivity to internet is severely limited or non-existent, then your citizens don't have that service anyway. But on the other hand, I know that we are too small of a market to seriously entertain the notion that something will be built out here as a region or even as an availability zone.
Ratko, do you have anything to add?
I mean, it's we have that work together for a long time, right? And it's there are different shapes and forms of the cloud, right? And so the people used to think like private cloud is a smaller version of something, but it doesn't have to be. And the same thing, like in terms of hyperscalers coming, we do work with the partners in a local environment. So we are building like edge nodes, something which sits closer to the customers in the first place. And currently this is very dynamic. Like we have every hyperscaler or big solution provider in that sense, they're thinking about, not just should we be over there, like physically. The point is, like, can we provide the services over there, right? From the different perspectives. So we can build something over there and then something happens and then physically that data center doesn't exist anymore. But we still want to provide the service because the customer wants to have that service. Right? Government wants to provide a citizen service moving forward. So resiliency, we started to use this term, not just digital resilience. We also call it like a distributed resilience, right? It has to be in different places so that actually you can manage different risks which are valid today. So.
Yeah, we heard in the first part of our discussion that in every country they have their own models and strategy to go forward, use state-managed clouds, hybrid models, or to rely on international partners. What could be your ideal version? It's a question for Evis and for C.
Yeah,
how to go forward?
If we talk about the local presence of the big public clouds, there are smaller solutions than the whole big data center. So there is, I know, of course, from Microsoft Azure Stack, for example, which is a small version, right?
But not any longer. Azure Local now.
Okay, so just an example, just as in a direction. Okay, it maybe was not so successful as it looked at the beginning. But if it would be, for example, small box from Microsoft Big Cloud providing the MS 365 service, right? Which is important for the public sector, big time. The email, the Teams and SharePoint, right? So as long as it works from the big public cloud, it's okay. But if something disrupts, then we need some kind of communication within the country. So if it would be like a smaller solution which would be able to operate offline for some time, I don't know, days, months, weeks, then it would be a perfect solution. So that direction. And from big other vendors, there are similar offering. Maybe some are more successful, some less. But that would be a big help for such an island. Maybe not only Baltics, but also somewhere else. So what I would like to say, it's like it was when it was the beginning of cloud era. There were like many fluctuations. Many enterprises were like trying to move full-time into cloud. Some stayed on premise. Some moved back and forth. And it was like saying again that it's very easy to fly into the cloud, but very difficult to get out. That's a bad thing, right? In airplanes. But I believe still the truth is that it's a hybrid mix. It's hybrid mix. You have to evaluate what should be highly available on premise. Then another thing is that you will never build a SaaS level specific application within on premise as good as it's done by big vendors. Yeah, simply economies of scale and technology, etc. So the SaaS application which you can afford. Like being offline for days and it doesn't disrupt your business. It's okay to reach from public cloud. But the critical stuff, I believe that should be available within on a premise.
Same.
Well, it depends, because how it has at least worked out in Estonia is that we have this mixture of ministry's own clouds, private clouds, then we have a government cloud, then we have public cloud options, and then we have this, let's say, we have equalized that from the service manager perspective, they can treat both government cloud and public cloud equally. But everyone likes to talk that, yeah, but it's easy, you do the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud, and then your application flows between the clouds and everyone are happy. But the sad reality is that maintaining the true hybrid cloud deployment, it's incredibly hard. You're basically your application team or the team responsible for the government service, they need to maintain completely different ecosystems. And well, one of the options that we are actually currently analyzing is that we have, let's say, a certain set of technologies that compose our government cloud, that perhaps the next version of government cloud will be a hybrid cloud itself, so that we will have these local built-out data centers that are Azure local or AWS outposts or whatever. This is something that we are evaluating seriously, because at the end of the day, from the cost of managing security architecture and also deployment or application lifecycle in completely different environments, it can't be underestimated. And this is something that we are evaluating, if it makes sense to go knowingly perhaps into a vendor lock, but at the same time perhaps reap the benefits from some other angle.
Ratko, well, what would you say on your experience, Microsoft experience, working with governmental organizations, not just in Baltics, but around the world? What's your offer? Why governmental organizations, why they choose you and not to make another?
No, I don't think that's a quick process, right? I mean, my experience. Okay, I'll start with Baltics, but okay, it's everywhere. I think on one of the presentations, that was a Finnish example. I think that there was this very nice line, which is like, we start with use cases, right? And discussing the use cases, what needs to be done, open conversation, that it takes time a little bit. And Sim knows how much we in Estonia spend time. I think for the first year, I never mentioned Microsoft in the first place. I was just like, we were just discussing as cloud provider versus government, right? Or plus government in that sense, to understand like what is the path forward in this one. So the reality is that there is no decision, should I go public or private, right? It depends on use cases and scenarios that you want to build. And we always end up with the combination, right? Always, right? Now, technically how we do that as cloud providers, not just Microsoft, everybody, like it's a mixture. That is the tricky one, right? So how do we move forward and make sure that everything still stays aligned? As someone said, Elvis, I think you were saying this one, like down to the exit strategy, right? So how do we build this? How we distribute that? Or what would be the proper approach? Forget that you are selling something, like let's make it work. And let's also build it in a way that we can actually at one point start to combine and change and move forward and then leave that platform, go somewhere else. And I can fully agree with Sim in terms of it's a hard one, because theoretically it looks good on the paper, but when you go into the specifics, that's a hard work, right? How to make sure that it's portable or interoperable or available or all these things, right? So it's a work.
Yeah, Mike.
I can share one anecdote. As you know, the Germans, like myself, we struggled with higher energy prices after the war broke out. And at some point, the German government decided to grant price cuts to the German customers on energy. So the government came to us, here, SAP, you are providing a big amount of energy providers in Germany with your software. Can you implement a price cap, which has never existed? So you have different pricing models, right? On green energy, blah, 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 but on a price cap specifically, entitled only for certain user groups, etc., that was a complex exercise. The truth is, most of those providers were on-premise. So what we had to do is we had to certainly update the software. Then we had to write handbooks. Then you had to organize trainings. And that took weeks and weeks. And the clock was ticking. If they would have been in the cloud already, it would be one click, and it would be rolled out in every system. And it would be available way ahead of that time frame. And I was even bashed in public television by the vice chancellor at that time. It's the IT guys. I said, no, it's not the IT guys, It's those who use that, the IT. They have to be in the cloud, and then it's easy to provide citizen-friendly solutions. So it's not only talking about risks, it's also talking about opportunities, that things reach the citizen in one click.
Citizen-friendly solutions sounds very good, I think it's a time to open up the floor for the questions from the audience. Do you have any questions, remarks so far on resilience from Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian, and other perspectives of your organizations? Who will be first in the second part? I know it's hard because we had a very good lunch, but we have to go forward, Who's ready? Sure. Nobody, really, nobody. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nobody so far. Okay.
You have to usually count to 8.
To
keep
8?
the silence.
Why?
Because it's psychologically
people
start to break.
1
in Estonia.
2. It works in Estonia and Riga too as well. Please, thank you very much. Can you give us mic? Sure. Thank you very much. Kiitos.
Somebody has to start. About resilience. One of my first ever meetings in Estonia, in RIT, the director asked me, are there any discussions in case of an emergency, which countries will move data where and when and how? It was a very shocking question because myself coming from the government of Finland, we never discussed that there might be not enough resources and there might be not enough places to move because it's cloud, there's everything. But that was the first question he asked from me, and I haven't heard that since. Should the resilience be kind of a thing more than just for one government? Just for me, because if everybody thinks just about me, then probably not all are going to get the service when there is a need.
Thank you. Who's ready to start to answer? I'll give the floor for everyone.
Well, at the end of the day, it depends a bit on those, let's say, critical government services architecture or design as well, because when we are coming back to the Baltic Island, our unfortunate is that the distances between our data centers and our eastern neighbor are short enough so that we would have very little forewarning before our data centers are start going up to the air, literally to the cloud. But it comes down to knowingly driving the requirements and architecture for those critical government services so that when the crisis happens, then you don't start to run towards the door, but you're already having this whatever contingency plan so that you can just start up either your passive nodes in the public cloud, passive nodes, or active nodes in the government cloud, European availability zone, or however you want to call that, because Ukrainian example was, in a sense, really good and really bad example, that they had the very same discussions. We can't use public cloud, it's not secure, it's not trustworthy, and etc. And when crisis hit, then they just went. But they went literally with the trucks, with the servers, and with the data physically driving towards the Europe, because they didn't have anything waiting there, or they just risked data losses basically. So this is something that we need to think beforehand, that if we design those resilient services, then it's a mixture of some sort of hybrid setup perhaps. We don't need to use the clouds day and night, but at the same time we need to be ready to use something, or we need to have some sort of system design or preparedness so that we don't get caught unprepared.
Thank you. You want to add something?
I just wanted to add, because we are collaborating on some of the resiliency activities. But what I remember that first time when I encountered this resiliency discussion, it was kind of closely connected to the cybersecurity, right? And I remember we started discussing like resiliency comes in play when we fail, right? Like thinking about resiliency should be based on we will fail eventually. You know, someone else is going to break our security model or something. So what do we do then? And a very interesting quote, which I still remember, it's an old one, is from the previous president of Estonia, Thomas Ilves. He said, like, we need to build systems in a way when we don't have a physical presence anymore, that we still operate in somewhere, providing services. So that is the true identity of the country, right? I mean, people still belonging to something, and they can identify. And so we actually started to do a lot of work in terms of not like how much we can protect. It was more like we are going to lose eventually, right? So how do we make sure that it is going to be rebuilt, or, you know, from the high availability perspective, working somewhere? So Ukraine was a very good example of this one. And it was happening really, really fast, right? So how do we, so this joint resiliency actually already exists, but unfortunately it exists at the point of crisis, right? And then we are all ready to help, and we are moving things, and we are building things together, and then moving. But you know, I think it's fair to say it would be much more effective if we started to prepare for that one earlier than when the problem started.
Yeah. Anything to add?
Yeah, I can add this basically. It's like a next step if everything goes bad in Baltics, in any country. So we are not talking anymore about high availability with local data centers. If they are blown up, whatever, then basically we should have in place already prepared the backup plan, or call it disaster recovery, somewhere else, outside. And the most important, of course, is the data, and the data backup. The most critical data backup should be like ongoing in parallel already, and it is. I believe every country has taken care of the most valuable data to be backed up somewhere outside. And then the question is how much and where. Is it a public cloud? Is it on-premise, extended cloud somewhere in Europe to be able to boot it up, to have the contingency, right? That's very tricky and very, very, very difficult to do it. And then, of course, we can touch also the issue which is the sovereign clouds from big data from big cloud providers. Everybody has sovereign clouds in Europe, right? And now it's like, especially this year, big discussion about the governments, European governments' most critical data. Is it okay to put in sovereign clouds, or should it be in government controlled, like embassy, data embassy, like Estonian data embassy, right? It's not a public cloud. It's a data center somewhere in a safe place. It's territory of Estonia, and but this is a very big topic. I just mentioned. We have 30 minutes, not enough. So.
Yeah, but I was going to chime in on the data embassy part, that Estonia has had data embassy, I think, for 10-ish years already, or something like that. But the problem is, and we had identified critical, let's say, from critical information systems or critical data set from the government perspective, and we more or less did an archive copy to our data embassy in case of, well, there is no Estonia any longer. But the problem is that when we're talking about the business continuity part, then that you have your citizen registry somewhere in data embassy, restoring that citizen registry as a usable service can be, I don't know, impossible task perhaps, because you have a lot of interdependencies already, because we have the X-Road, we have a lot of different national registries, they are real-time exchanging data, we have dependencies on authorization or authentication that are centralized services. So if you have only that database of citizen registry, then restoring that as a service can be almost impossible task. That's why we put a lot of effort into building out that government cloud European, let's say, region or availability zone, and that's why also we are working heavily with hyperscalers to be able to approach that issue also from that perspective that not only that we have just archive copy outside of Estonia, but also that we have capability of restoring actual services in near real time or with minimal disruption.
Yeah, I just wanted to, not to take too much time, that I think this service-focused thing is very important. Just to give you an example, we were chatting about this one during the lunch, maybe you know, like South Korea currently very digitally advanced country, right? They for a week, they don't have almost not a single government service available. Now they're completely blank. Like what happened they have like a huge government data center. It caught fire, you know, they're moving battery one, another one, the whole thing went down, and they were very much investing in this, you know, like a 1 point of failure now, when you look at this one, right? So now they're communicating with the citizens via Twitter, right? Because email is not there. Like they don't have not even an email. So, you know, like when you think about South Korea, you would never actually say like, well, that's the country where the things are going to go south, right? But that happened, right? And so what Sim is actually saying, like now for a week, there's no proper communication or services. So that's a context of South Korea. Now put that context over here and say now, like here, for a week, there's no communication between the government and the citizens. Like that, it would be a different level of panic, I think, happening around, right? Because of geopolitical things and what is happening around. And so these things, they're important to put into the context of what can you do with how fast you actually have to recover.
No, you have to find a solution.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think the problem is expedited because how much services are digitalized in Estonia? 99%, something. So imagine that none of the government services would work because we are so heavily dependent on digitalized services.
The last one was divorce, right?
Yeah, of course. That's the most important mission critical government service.
Mike, you're representing, you want to add something, but I want to give you a floor. You are representing one of the largest projects in Europe regarding cloud infrastructure. Could you tell us a bit more on that project? And
my pleasure. To kind of do the intro, I remember meeting with the Ukrainian digital minister. And in the first days of the war, which were the first targets, among others, data centers, right? And some credit has to go to the hyperscalers, as he said, that they rescued a lot of the data as soon as possible to pull the data out of the country. Obviously, over time, that's not a solution which is sustainable because you need some data also in the country. And that means that every static data center, no matter how big it is a problem in a crisis or even in a war. So if you talk to a lot of armed forces, including Germany, their way forward is to basically decentralize, to mobilize, literally mobilize the data centers. And I always say to literally containerize data centers. And for this, you need software. You need a cloud operating system, which helps you in this to do basically to overcome all these obstacles on authentication, on availability, on data connection, everything you mentioned. And this basically builds the bridge to the EU project. So even for SAP, we have what we call a 3+1 strategy. So a lot of our customers are perfectly fine that our services run on hyperscaler friends. And if it comes to Office 365, which was mentioned, in Germany and France, there are two specific solutions. In Germany, it's called Delos. In France, it's called Blue, where Microsoft provides a very, very, very air-gapped Azure version, which does not share any metadata, which does not allow any updates from outside. So it goes all through the German authorities that any update is being monitored and scanned before it's applied. Because there's no alternative if you want to process particularly even the smallest classified data. You cannot use the public cloud as it is. So we found a collaboration with SAP on that front. But that's not the end of it. We were looking at this +1 component. How can we enrich this? How can we make this cloud native for the future? Resilient, decentral. So how to approach this? And some smart guys discovered this EU program, IPSAI. And as you know, in Europe, normally public funding for companies is not allowed. There are exceptions. One exception is what they call important projects of common European interest, microprocessors, batteries, etc., but also cloud. And thankfully, the Latvian government is part of this initiative. So we have Dati in the room, the University of Latvia. So we have a handful of Latvian friends who are also running very important projects in this initiative. The SAP project is somewhat the backbone, the cornerstone of this initiative, because we are developing a cloud operating system for basically what we call the multi-cloud edge continuum. And I don't know if you want to, shall I use the slides? Then I need the clicker.
If you like it, yeah. You can take a clicker, of course. Why not?
It basically shows here, as you see, Latvia is part of it. I learned that the money comes from the member states, so not every member state can be part of this. And what we did was we decided that among the 3 friendships with hyperscalers, we have to strengthen an alternative. And one of this way to strengthen it is participating in this EU initiative. We called it Open Reference Architecture. In our case, we call it APIRO Reference Architecture. And also mentioned this morning, it's fully open source, which is not usual to us. I mean, we do a lot of commercial licensing business. But for this purpose, we were convinced, for a number of reasons, that we should do this fully open source, as much as possible open source. So if you look on the apirora.eu site or NeoNephos, you will find a lot of components which you can use to run your edge cloud in a real sovereign way. And technically it's a research project, so it takes a few more years, or a couple more years. But we have advanced already a lot, not just us, other projects as well. So take a look, because the idea is, and here you see all the partners and the governments involved, including Latvia. The idea is basically to give Europe an alternative, particularly the public sector. And if you look at the German government, for example, the German armed forces, they're very interested in what is going on here, what will be available here, which components, which blueprints. So the idea is that we offer a toolbox of open source components. We heard about OpenShift this morning. The alternative we developed already years ago, and which is now further developed, is the so-called Gardener project, which helps you to run your Kubernetes clusters. And this is basically buying or providing or contributing to the objectives of the EU projects, as you can see here. So the reference architecture, that's what we do. The way we do it is open source. And obviously it has to be interoperable, secure, all the criteria we discussed in our round. And we also aim at energy efficiency, so all of the above. So it's a huge project. We have almost 400 people in this project. It takes more than 4 years, but hopefully at the end of the day, we will go away from the silos and be able to provide a cloud ecosystem and a mesh ecosystem. The term was also used this morning, that you are flexibly moving your data where you think it's most appropriate.
Thank you. Very insightful. For Estonia, Latvia, kind of project?
Well, it depends.
Depends. You have to look at
because, yeah, of course, but at the end of the day, it depends what will be the actual stack or the standardized components that will be built out. Because, well, obviously, when we are today with the rich customer who basically we are acting like a AWS and Azure partner for them, and where we see what they are doing in the cloud is that they are consuming from the cloud the services that they cannot consume from the government cloud or from their own data centers. And well, probably Kubernetes is mature and standardized component enough so that they don't go to the cloud to consume Kubernetes. Rather, they go and try out perhaps all the AI foundry models and possibilities that come from there. So it remains to be seen. Obviously, I welcome the attempt to standardize a certain stack because, as perhaps Tõnu mentioned earlier in the morning, we are building out pretty similar, let's say, platform services stack on top of the cloud infrastructure as a service layer, where we try to encapsulate or make a product out of all the components that are necessary for a service owner to succeed with their services. So it's a really predictable set of services that you need to be able to serve any kind of information system. So we are doing something similar, perhaps. So yeah, I'm definitely going to observe your your research project.
It's interesting.
I would.
We have a.
Sorry, just about the open source. We're also big fans of open source. That's a very nice, attractive direction of the software. But the risk is that should be like the particular open source should be strong with a strong community behind. If it's like developed just by one vendor, and there are examples in Europe when just one vendor, I don't recall which one, but one vendor just lobbied with a big money in EU to promote just one open source solution, right? And there is just one enterprise behind it. And it's a big risk. So you can push it through the EU, through legislation. Okay, this is the right direction, but it's a big risk. If one disappears and no community, it's totally wrong.
No, I couldn't agree more. This is why we donate everything to the Neo-Nefas Foundation, as we saw. And already, and this is only half year old, we have Deutsche Telekom, we have Lidl, as you know, the stores, Lidl maybe, they have a big IT branch now called Stack IT. They are part of it. So we have a growing number of European hyperscalers, if you wish, because they know it's so serious that they need to be at the table, need to contribute, need to monitor what's going on. So my invitation is take a look and ideally even contribute.
Because customers are putting like a big money, and if customers trust, it's about trust. They invest time and money in this direction, and then if the roots disappear somehow, then it's a waste of time.
People are watching us online. We have one question from Facebook. I hear people talking about cloud services all the time, but what about services that are subscribed to from US-based service providers, such as live broadcast solutions, bonding, etc.? Such a question. You get this question?
Can you repeat the last part?
Okay. What about services that are subscribed from US-based service providers, such as live broadcast solutions, bonding, etc.?
Well, definitely anything US-based SaaS services are offering, definitely it's an issue, especially with the public sector. And when it comes to having, let's say, assurances or transparency when it comes to being compliant with GDPR and other regulations that are, well, Europe-based that apply to us, but doesn't necessarily apply to the US service providers.
Right.
GDP,
within our stack, we carefully looked at any dependency to avoid third-party dependency, no matter where they're from. And so sometimes it's hard. It takes a while. Within the IPSI, not all of the dependencies were taken away. Also in other projects, we are, at least for us, we're trying to go this way, to be independent, go down to the bare metal, as we say, and do it open source, but with a reliable community. So serious partners who promise 10-year maintenance or even longer. So we cannot, it's not a game or some hackathon or something, it's serious business. So this is the combination, all the ingredients have to come together, and thankfully the EU is supporting this.
Radko, I know you have a slide as well. You want to use them?
No, it was not about this one. I just wanted to add a sentence before the question.
Yes.
I apologize. Now, from the hyperscaler perspective, right? I think the more rules, the guidance and discussions about rules we have, it's easier for everybody to operate, right? So when people are talking about, for example, US-based services, it's not like we are like selling that, with the trucks and stuff. Like it's actual very serious project and discussion with the governments and the organizations and so forth around the rules and compliance and security, like these top level requirements. And the more actual the requirements they are on the table, it's easier for us to operate, right? Because then we can align to the rules. The toughest thing for us is when we don't have anything on the table, right? We're just having high-level discussions on, very emotional bounded and very opinionated on some of the things which shouldn't be there. Like they should be clearly stated as a kind of information security rules or other rules which needs to be over there. So we are always welcoming, when someone says like we need to put some structure around this.
Right. We had some questions in the audience. Please, you can introduce yourself. Yes, right.
Yeah. Okay. It's Maris from TED. So if our rigs arrived, for example, and 1 or 2 data centers fails locally, what's happened? Because first of all, if you have just only backup somewhere, you need space where you need time to restore infrastructure. Second is capacity, connectivity, because when we moved the data from Ukraine in 2022, we feel this situation because over 1 month, it will be great. So you explain what we are doing in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, because we need to be prepared for the situation. Okay, thank you.
This is a question, what to do in a time of crisis.
We briefly touched that topic with Sim already in discussion, that it's much bigger challenge to get it up and running. So first thing is the data, of course, that we understand everybody. And then it's a set of critical services, which should be like place and time and tested and prepared to get it up and running in situation X as a DR. It's not simple, especially thanks to the integrations with different systems. To basically to have the full scale 100%, you have to replicate all the systems. It may be in a smaller scale somewhere outside. Not a trivial task.
Yeah, not only the systems, you need to actually have supporting systems and management systems there as well.
Exactly, a copy. Yeah, twin.
Yeah, but yeah, in Estonian perspective, our, let's say, European data center of our government cloud, obviously we do, from the capacity perspective, we keep it equal, we treat it equal as Estonian data centers of the government cloud. So it's, we do not run it in reduced manner. Actually, last week we analyzed that if in Estonia government cloud operates 3+ locations and we have only 1 Luxembourg region, then that Luxembourg region might need to be might need to have a lot more capacity than our standardized set of Estonian data centers, because then we would need to consolidate all the services that are spread around different data centers into one. Plus, even in case of disaster, you would still expect some sort of availability of those services. So you can't run them on single nodes or in really stripped down manner, or you need to have a certain architectural similarity so that the service teams, they don't need to maintain completely different sets of deployments or configurations or architecture, which is also an overhead and also a cost. Nothing comes for free.
Comes for free.
Yeah, well, I just wanted, it's all risk management. Right? I mean, you can live, if you can live with the thing that, you have your data, now you need to rebuild the services and it will take some time, fine. But I just wanted to add as kind of, there's always answer coming from the big tech guys, like, do you have capacity? Yes. Can we rebuild this thing somewhere? Yes, right, of course. Now, and then the risk hits in. Like, what is the bigger risk? Waiting for these services to be redeployed, rebuilt 7 to 30 days, or rebuilding them faster in a public cloud and taking the risk of the public cloud, whatever that risk is in our discussion, right? So it's you always balance between those two things. And then sometimes people are like, the risk of working with the hyperscaler is bigger than me waiting and discussing with the citizens and nation, like where are all these services, like in South Korea for the last month, right? And then you live with your decision. That's it, right? I mean, that it's risk management, risk-based approach in the first sense. So,
more questions in the audience? Yes, please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Lena. I have a question. Where do you see the biggest hidden costs of maintaining resilience outside the public cloud?
Hidden cost of...
Yeah, I would say it's human, like labor. No?
You could go.
I can only share what from our IPSI project experience, that at the end of the day, the human cost is high in terms of getting the right expertise and maintaining the right expertise. But in quantity, it's always hardware. And this is why we are also looking into reducing hardware costs within this stack where it's running. And in this context, there will be two more of these programs from the EU, AI and CIC, which is dedicated on hardware. So maybe this is something the Baltics should take a close look if you can enrich your data center landscape through this European program. Because at the end of the day, when we are discussing with the EU, hardware is always more expensive. I also thought the human factor is very important. No, it's equally important or maybe even more important, but in terms of quantity of money, hardware. Particularly if you think about AI GPUs, very costly, plus the energy consumption. So it's as simple as that, or as sad as that, it's the hardware, which you need. So,
in our own opinion, the human cost is much higher than the hardware. Maybe it's different in Germany, but okay. But about the additional human cost outside of the normal peace situation, if we're talking about day X somewhere else, then obviously nothing comes from free, as Siim said, and then the human cost is added and plus. And it's very important to understand as a state, and basically state, somebody has to cover those costs for the data center, for the cloud. Is it a private cloud? Is it a public cloud? Plus human costs, highly skilled specialists, everything costs. I have an example. I mentioned our communication cable, which was broken in February. So there are questions. Why don't you put a second cable? Of course, second two cables, resilience. If one is broken, other is like a backup. But the second cable costs millions, right? And those millions, there is no simple business case. Basically, the business case comes only if you are counting in the risk. If it's broken, then somebody has to pay for the second, because in terms of the capacity, we are pretty fine with the connectivity to run the business in a normal life. Yeah? But if it's a disaster, then somebody has to cover. We can call it the nation or the state, but somebody has to pay for it. It's not for free.
How to make then resilience cost effective? Is it possible?
No.
No? On this optimistic note?
Well, because, well, on a more serious note, resilience is always an extra cost, because if you wouldn't have those risks, you wouldn't plan for those contingency plans. You wouldn't waste, or I wouldn't call it a waste, but you wouldn't spend a lot of resources to just have that capability just in case a disaster strikes. But coming back to your question, I will take only 1 minute. Usually the things that those gentlemen mentioned, those are quantifiable. But when we are talking about true hybrid cloud setups and teams needing to be able to design the solutions across the different cloud service providers, the hidden costs are usually when it comes to the service design, architecture, security, management, they do activities, and you need to double it everything. And this is usually that the C-level is overlooking that, yeah, we are doing hybrid cloud and we have accounts on different service providers and we are good. But on a more serious note, this is something that the teams need to maintain the competencies of completely different ecosystems, and that's usually the hidden cost that you need to factor in when you start doing the true hybrid cloud resilient services.
Okay, thank you. Let's take one more question from the audience. Please go ahead.
Thank you. A question about energy. No one is talking about the energy, and it would be interesting to hear that now running and training your own large language models, let us use LLMs instead of AI, will consume more and more power. And all the data centers we know that are capped for the power. Are you following the SMRs, small modular reactors? Are you following what is going on there? I can see that, I know that Germans in specific are very critical as the legislation is not complete, lightly saying, though I would really love to hear what Estonians and Latvians are following there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, when it comes to training the models, then there are not a lot of companies who train the models. Usually, most of them use pre-trained models with your own data sets. So training the model, you need to have a really specific use case. But yeah, coming to your question of modular nuclear reactors, then on a long term, having a distributed energy production is definitely something worth considering strategically, instead of having small amount of large nuclear reactors or whatever energy producing plants.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question for Latvian as well.
Of course, our company is not yet in nuclear power, but okay, we are looking. We need power more and more, especially about the AI loads. But about AI loads, it's also very important to go really into the bits and pieces. So, for example, as Sim mentioned, to train the model, it really consumes a lot of power, right? And that's maybe a business for big ones, like Meta is doing and everybody else. But the small ones, the other part of AI is to run the inference. And for the inference, there are well, basically much more efficient, specialized processors and servers to run after the training. Yeah? You train, use a lot of power, and then the inference can be much more efficient. Of course, needs energy, but not that much as a first step.
Mike?
Just one last comment. One of the IPSA partners is quite interesting. It's called Westfalen Wind. So they equip windmills with small, well, edge nodes, far edge nodes, whatever you want to call them. It depends on a different scale. But they are getting the energy right where they are. So at least in Germany, as you said, it's difficult with nuclear energy. So they have to rely on the windmills. But maybe this is something sustainable, literally.
Mike Kose, Evi Staube, Sim Vene, Ratko Mutavdzic. Thank you very much. It was really interesting, inspiring, insightful discussion. Let's applaud them.
Thank you.
And thank you for your questions and participation in this discussion. We are going to change the setup for our next part. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Really good. We are going to change the setup, switching mics, and we are going to continue our third discussion. Yeah, we had some mobile phone here. Yes, you can take a seat. Nice to meet you, Alexandru Negu. Perfect pronunciation. It's nice to hear. So you heard this quite a rich discussion before on the resilience, partly covered, but we will continue on cybersecurity, specifically risks and solutions. We move on. It's a critical issue, of course, with increasing dependence on the cloud. The risks are changing, and so must our approaches. What are the main risks, and how do we mitigate them? So our speakers, I'll try to pronounce correctly. Alexander Negu.
Perfect.
Cloud Engineering Director, OICI, Northeast Oracle, right?
Thank you.
Simonas Černiauskas, CEO, Infobalt Association, Lithuania, and Karl Henrik Peterson, board member, Estonian Health Insurance Fund. Right, correct?
Almost.
Almost.
Interim CEO at the moment. So.
Sorry?
Interim Chief Executive Officer at the moment.
Okay. Okay. It's perfect. It's almost perfect. But anyway, gentlemen, let's start with a quick warm-up. It's not maybe quick. You can ask a bit broader and longer. But when it comes to cybersecurity, what's the one thing that keeps you up at night, if any, if you are lucky enough to sleep soundly?
I can start.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a long story because what I have found and what was actually one of the questions from the last panel, that the human aspect. And I think the main issue is actually the organizations that are delivering on the operations and also actually change the business, meaning the development side. And as we all know that the security part depends a lot of on how well you are keeping all the systems up to date and so forth. So that part is actually probably the biggest headache that I see. I'm not speaking specifically from the Estonian Health Insurance Fund's own operations perspective, but looking wider picture from the other government-funded entities in Estonia, then that's definitely the biggest concern for me that I see.
Thank you. Please.
So, you know, I would say that definitely it's not some kind of extravaganza like 0 days. I would say, and most likely a bit similar with your comments, that mostly it's about identity, I would say, identity abuse, also, well, combined with third-party risks and, you know, AI-driven social engineering definitely makes the impact. But, you know, these are simple things. These are mostly human-led mishaps. And, you know, those simple kind of hygiene things that sometimes we are already bored to talk about, like MFAs, passkeys, conditional accesses, testing of controls. I think these are the ways, you know, to overcome that. So.
Thank you, Alexander.
Very interesting question. First of all, cybersecurity, right? When you talk in the context of cloud, we need to understand, because it's a very broad term, right, cybersecurity. There are two things in relation with cloud. There is the security of the cloud and the security in the cloud. Me being part of a hyperscaler, I'm not that worried about the vulnerabilities and the tech footprint that we have on the cloud service, but rather than how we help customers to make sure that what it sits on their end of the deal, because the cloud is a shared responsibility model, how we make sure that all the best practices are being enforced, and we make sure that the overall solution that the customer is getting, which could be identity, it could be network, it could be physical security, you know, you need to have zero trust policies across the entire stack, and that makes the job difficult, right? So probably if there is one focus area for us, is actually to making sure that customers are implementing properly and taking advantages of all the features that are coming from the cloud providers. Yeah, and again, just to keep behind OCI, and I'm very happy to speak about Oracle having a cloud. I hope at this point everyone knows it, right? 5 years ago, everyone was smiling. Today, I think it's quite a known thing. The engineering organization behind Oracle Cloud and hyperscalers in general, but for Oracle Cloud, counts 15,000 people. So there are 15,000 people or more behind product development, support, right? I'm not saying anyone can implement private cloud, buy hardware, develop software, and so on, but you need to ask the question if it does make sense, right? And that's why...
Does it?
It depends, right? And for that, we have built different kind of... If you are going to look on the sky, you will not find two clouds that look the same. This is why we have built a cloud portfolio that, you know, based on what the customers demanded for us. And I'm very happy and proud to see that such deployments, something that we are calling Cloud.Customer, you can find it in all the 3 Baltic states, and it's not something new. We have mission-critical system running in the Baltic states for a very, very long time, right? So you can use our cloud, we can build it for you, and you have to operate it, or we can do it even with a partner. We can take a local partner, we build the data, or you own the data center, we provision the infrastructure and share this intellectual property, and the partner is the one that is operating it. This allows us to have a, to respond to customer demand depending on the compliance, regulations, and security constraints. Yeah?
In light of Russian aggression, of course, after 2022, in a light that in Latvia we have an increase of 40–50% of attacks on governmental organizations and critical infrastructure since war started. How are your countries adapting the cybersecurity strategies and measures from your institutional perspective? What can you say on this experience and job has done so far? Let's start with Estonian colleague.
Thank you. I had a slide about that actually.
Yeah, let's go. Why not?
Maybe the next one. Okay. So here I would say that who's got your back? That was actually biggest issue for us. And you see, I think this statistics there about the cybersecurity incidents that are those ones that have been registered, that has really grown twice. But nowadays, I think we also need to recognize that these LLMs are not just doing constructive work, but also destructive work. So I would say that the security threat landscape is evolving very, very rapidly. And I used to work in a financial institution that we were from Estonia delivering info security services for the whole banking group. And we had there like 40 to 50 people working just for information security. I think today, if I look back at all of those tasks that we need to do, adding those new threats, I think we're talking about maybe 100 people that would need to really employ to actually do adequate job, not really even super good job. So, and then raise your hand, whoever is in the room, that who is employing right now 100 info security people in your organization. So that's why I say that, oh, that's perfect. So exception proves the rule, right?
It's Amazon, you know?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's why I said, who's got your back? And I think this is, for us, it was one of the biggest reasons why we moved to public cloud. Who's got our back? Who are we working together with? And I put this chess picture there because everybody who has ever played a little bit of chess knows that if you leave your piece hanging, then it may become an easy target.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
So that's it from your perspective so far. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
I think so.
Lithuanian perspective.
Yeah, so of course, what we see, as we are all of us at Frontier, we see increased number of DDoS attacks, probing public access, public portals, then of course disinformation campaigns, etc. So activities are really increasing, and they will increase. We don't have any. We are not naive here, so definitely we are in a way of, let's say, hybrid war. So. So here there are several elements. Of course, a bit it's related with regulation. So NIS2 is transposed. Also, it gives some floor, an additional emphasis on cybersecurity measures. Also, national CERT, upcoming industrial or sectorial SOCs are also playing and will play an even bigger role. And you know, also we had huge discussions with Cybersecurity Center how to make us stronger, and also we were talking about the workforce, how to combine forces, governmental forces, and also business and science forces. So about, let's say, preparing some units which could help in some serious circumstances to support the critical infrastructure. So these are also, let's say, ongoing conversations. We already have some results. Also, there is an appetite to build a cyber campus in Vilnius. We already have Cyber City, that's home of most popular VPN in the world, NordVPN. But also the idea is to have home for collaboration between government, business, and academia in terms of cybersecurity. So CyberCam is also upcoming here. So these are, let's say, several steps Lithuania is going.
Thank you. Alexander, do you have any proposals how to mitigate risks?
Yeah, I can share pretty much from what other countries are doing, right? Because my team is covering a larger territory. But also I want to answer as a European citizen, because I'm Romanian. I'm also sitting on the border, right? So we feel that pressure.
Right.
We just had a big thing last weekend with Moldova, right? Our sister country, and it was okay. But we were under, in the last electoral year, as Romanians, we were under a significant cyber threat. I think we are taking the right measures. I can give just an example. For example, the governmental cloud right now is moving somehow, or it's being built or developed under the control of the Secret Telecommunication Service, right? Which is a very different, pretty much, approach versus, from legal point of view versus other countries. It depends from country to country and legislation, law, and possibilities, right? For example, in Armenia and Georgia, there are different kind of challenges that would have to be addressed in a different manner. Germany sits in a very different situation, and I cannot say that there is a single formula. You really need to understand what can be done, what are the legislation that, shape pretty much the possibilities, and yeah, this is why we need to have options on the table, because we heard about private cloud, hybrid.
And not even a united formula for Baltics, 3 Baltic states. You see 3 formulas.
Based on my experience, I think you all go, and we had a short discussion. All 3 states go in a similar direction, but we have seen it on the stage with different approaches, right? In terms of resilience, in terms of leveraging hybrid, public, private cloud. So does it make sense to have a united strategy? Probably yes, but you need to understand how feasible it is to be implemented. And that's my point of view. What is really important is to have the option to leverage the best pieces of it, right? Is public cloud going to solve an issue in terms of agility and so on? Perfect. But you need to have the option also to run it in your own premises, in your own data center, with the support from the cloud provider. I want just to give a counter example, yeah, if I can. We have a thing which is called sovereign cloud, and I really have to congratulate Estonia being one of the first countries that adopted our sovereign cloud. It's something like, I'm not sure how many people understand actually the level of details under sovereign cloud. So we're talking about legal entities with European citizens that are operating, right? And the effect of that is, for example, when you have a software bug, right? Unfortunately, we cannot speak with our colleagues in US in order to solve it. So the guys that have built the intellectual property cannot take a look at the European data, right? Sovereignty is great, but when it comes to solving an operational problem, for example, trust me, it makes the process much more difficult. So you need to find the right balance where it does make sense.
Right. Any comments, remarks?
Yeah, I would actually add one more thing. I started my discussion about organizations, and I think also here it's really important to emphasize the organization side. We are right now working on establishing, let's say, common organization to do this protection or prevention work on cyber security arena within the medical area in Estonia. There is another initiative from the state side doing the same thing, but if anyone has ever had, let's say, critical situation where your risks have realized, you have this security incident at hand, you know that you have to be on the reacting or rather working side, that you have to be the one who actually takes care of your operations. So you have to be ready, you must train yourself, and then others can come and help you, otherwise you're just kind of floating without any drive. So this is what we're doing, and I think from the technical side there are so many things. As I mentioned, basically the landscape is exploding at the moment. I don't think we have seen half of it yet. One of the interesting topics from maybe technology and AI side that I'm seeing is that if you're imagining how these attacks are orchestrated right now, so you're basically building LLM type system which is trying to find your weak points and orchestrating the attacks via those botnets. Then how do we protect against that? You need basically similar tool set on your protection side. And do we have that?
So you don't see any possibility to survive and mitigate risks without going to public cloud?
I wouldn't say that, but I think it's really difficult. And I like one word, which is our saying, that is, keep the main thing the main thing. Is the cybersecurity the main thing of most of these organizations? It's really important, but it's not the main thing why Estonian Health Insurance Fund has been called to action. We are providing health insurance for our people. So somehow we also need to ensure that we are able to do that besides cybersecurity. And I think this is the actual challenge.
Right. Yeah. Any comments, remarks?
No? We submit to that, yeah.
Okay. Questions, remarks for our panelists? I don't see any. I have to count. Okay. 1, 2.
Can we ask them a question? Maybe there is someone who wants to answer. Right.
Yeah, okay.
What do you think is the weakest security link in this cloud ecosystem? I mean, what is the most accessed vulnerability pretty much when it comes to deploying solutions to public cloud?
Yeah, please.
Since I'm in cybersecurity, the human is the weakest link.
Congrats, yeah. So humans, right? If we take a look at the customers that we are having, so I'm not going to refer any international studies or something, but based on our expertise across multiple countries, most of the vulnerabilities that are being exported are related with the profile hijacking, right? Hijacking the profile. It's much easier to break a Gmail account or whatever email, to impersonate of someone that has proper access into the account, rather than breaking the cloud per se. Yeah, so I think that's the weakest, and this is something. This is why I was saying you need to keep the balance and to understand actually what is the best model, because there's not a single recipe here.
Yeah, and maybe if I just comment on the way I was flying to Riga, I was flying to go with Lithuanian National Cybersecurity Director. Unfortunately, he was not able to be here because he was moving towards Amsterdam to another conference. But when I also asked, I said that there was a conference, etc., and I said, "What are your insights?" I said, someone else. Usually, right now, hackers are not breaking into systems. They are simply logging into them. And that's basically what we are
not
talking
breaking,
about.
just logging. Yeah. See.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that perhaps last year human or password was the weakest link in the chain, but nowadays I would say that the strong multi-factor is becoming a pretty standardized method how to authenticate or authorize both humans and machines. So I would think that currently, at least this is what I've seen in different companies, that it's surprising how many successful attacks utilize vulnerabilities that have been reported and patched 6 months ago, last year. So this is something that I've seen that, and this is something that in the Ministry of Interior, where we have put significant effort into that, the systems would be updated within hours when the vulnerability is patched or the new updates are out. But this is beyond ridiculous, so almost how difficult the simple things are.
I completely agree with that. It's the operational quality, basically, how you're able to handle that, and do you even have the people to do that? Another thing that is also, of course, as a result of people acting, but if we drill a little bit deeper, then what I see that as those technology stacks get more and more complicated, more parts that you need to configure, actually the configuration errors, the basic competence gap of how to configure and the procedures to check that those critical parts are actually correctly configured. This is a huge source of, let's say, open doors for bad guys.
On that comment, I want to say that in our security practice internally, we have noticed, and probably it's a logical conclusion, but one of the biggest accelerators or reasons behind these increased attacks are actually large language models, right? So from a security vulnerability report to putting code that could exploit that security vulnerability, it's a matter of hours, maybe. That's a new kind of challenge that we need to address as well.
Yeah. Any more questions, remarks? Have you met any breaches or cyber incidents after that move to public cloud? I mean, Estonian Health Insurance Fund. And if yes, what was your reaction? Lessons drawn?
Yeah, of course we have all the time,
frequently.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's as you voiced it, so that incidents, we have a lot of incidents. Of course, the other question is that what is the cause of the incident and so forth. From the point of view of the cloud infrastructure, we haven't really had many, maybe one, but otherwise it's the common stuff, you know, phishing letters and what else. So it's also a security incident. But from the other part, I observed that we have made a huge quality jump in terms of operational quality. And this is why my first message was that the part that concerns operational quality and the organization and who's got your back, also covering the operational quality topics, the partners and the technologies and how they actually relate between each other. That is actually very, very important. This is probably one of the biggest wins in terms of health insurance cloud deployment.
And when you moved to that cloud, this process got the title Idea of the Year, yeah, in 2023.
I think maybe that was not why in terms of the operational quality. How should I put it? I know there are viewers also online, so I need to be careful when choosing the words. But let's just put it this way, that the Estonian board that is responsible for ensuring that data is handled right, we had a meeting with them afterwards, and they said that relax, that we're not going to put you in jail because first of all, the things that you have done, they seem okay, but also some of the specific EU legislation parts were just completed at the right time, so that those last compliance risks were actually mitigated. So I think this reason for that recognition was rather that we were taking these actions knowing what were the benefits that we were after, even though maybe all the legislative parts were not fully clear by that time. And that's why we were just the first one through the door from the moment on that the legislation was actually okay from Estonian Health Insurance Fund and Estonian State view. Yeah, but there are a lot more to discuss actually from that, what we have won, what we have achieved. I can do that now or later, so...
No, you can do it now, yeah. Actually. It's a proper time, why not?
Yeah, that's great. So maybe my next slide, which was the one that 3x your productivity. Yeah. So here you can actually see what has happened after we moved to cloud for our change the business, as we call it, so development efforts. And this is purely technical development hours from programmers. Within this time frame that we went to cloud, we have been able to actually 3x our development capability. And I think this is pretty significant. And actually, this is only half the picture, because what is not here is our cooperation with some other government entities, where we have started to build services for Estonian citizens. For example, the health portal, which is a new service, portal for doctors, and so forth. So the actual result by today, which we checked early this week, is close to 10x that we are now able to do more for our citizens. And I think this, it's not only the part of going into cloud with this technology, it's actually, again, the organization, because to reap the benefits of this change into cloud, we actually changed our organization completely. So we used to be a department-based organization. Now we have defined service portfolios and specific services that we are delivering to citizens. And basically this parallelism in conjunction with removing those bottlenecks from the downstream technical processes is what is actually enabling this kind of jump in innovation capability. And I think this is where I see that why this change is actually worth this kind of recognition. I think that's the actual story.
Success story, actually. In a time of crisis and cyber attacks, it's quite nice to hear such kind of story. Simonas, I would like to ask you if you would name one or two typical cyber attacks that change a picture of security situation in Lithuania, lessons drawn from that.
Well, so, you know, sometimes those attacks who are the most visible, they are maybe not the ones we really eager to. But let's say, okay, of course, there were several DDoS critical infrastructure elements. I think, you know, it was more about the awareness raising and, you know, understanding how we should deal with it, and it went quite okay. One of quite big, let's say, at least in media examples was it was not even cybersecurity. I would say it's complete lack of hygiene when some of the data were left, users' data were left quite let's say opened, and some of entry-level hackers simply took them and compromised quite a big database of one service user. So, you know, and you know, there are tons of other examples where we can also get some insights or learn some lessons.
I see. Alexander, do you have some?
Cloud misconfiguration, unfortunately, right? Again, when it comes to the tech footprint, I'm not that worried for the cloud services per se, because we have people, we have a security operating center, we are monitoring that. But misconfiguration is something that happens way too often, right? And it gets back to pretty much people expertise, and this is why we try to mitigate that by staying close to our customers and supporting them, right? In configuration and following the best practices. It's like, okay, I give you a car, right? It's the best car and the most secure, but if you leave it open, I'm sorry. It might disappear over the night, right? That's pretty much the comment I would like to make. And we have account hijacking is also another thing. I think this started because of the entire phishing, spam, you know, a lot of things that very effective measures to get hold of the account. These are the most common things. Plus, and I have to say it, although as an engineer I love open source, how many of you really know actually what kind of lines of code you have in those open source libraries? When you do a Python installation, right, there are thousands of libraries there. And I think also something that maybe you don't know, but most contribution in open source are coming from China, right? So I'm not saying, right, there could be packages that cannot be exploited and are very secure and so on, but it's a matter of trust. When you go with a provider, and for us internally, for example, we are prohibited. If a customer wants to use any kind of open source tooling, they are supported, we have them as a service in our cloud and so on. But our cloud is not built with open source. So if you want to build it like us, probably you would have to build the entire stack. Yeah.
Talking on sensitive data, are there situations where not using the public cloud is the right choice, to your mind? Yes. Give me an example.
So people always say that Oracle was late to the cloud game, which is true, but it was like that because we have listened to our customers, right? It's 2025 and we are debating we should go into the public cloud or not. We are still debating. Looking at the core of Oracle, we came from large enterprise mission critical workloads, right? And let me stop here to see if is anyone. Do you guys know where the name Oracle comes from? Anyone? Hint? No, nothing?
No. Any hint?
Yeah, I will have to provide the answer, right? But it was not a rhetorical question. So Project Oracle was the name of the project led by Central Intelligence Agency, United States, right? This is our first customer and the most important one. And as you can imagine, it was, okay, we later got the name of Oracle, inherited from that, but as you can imagine, it started from security, right? And the concern of data security. And that is core DNA for Oracle, and it will always be core DNA, right? This is why we built a different different kind of deployment, and you have to choose again. You want to use a public cloud, perfect. But from what we have seen, if you take a look at who is using the public cloud right now and what kind of workloads are to be used in the public cloud, we can see a lot of internet banking startups, scale-ups, companies that are, we haven't seen so many customers moving with mission-critical workloads to public cloud, right? And this is why it's important, because you want to have the public cloud advantages, but if you can have it in your data center under your control to shut down the internet connection or do something like that, it's extremely important. Yeah? Also, I've heard the comment that hyperscalers will not invest in Baltics because of the market opportunity, right? We have built it in such a way that the smallest data center for us, it's 3 racks. Right? So if you are familiar with the data center, it's as small as 3 racks. It's very feasible for large corporations, very feasible for public sector, very feasible. And again, it comes from the demand, right? It can run in air-gapped environments. You can disconnect it from the internet. You can link it with the public cloud. So you have options, because those options are linked with your needs and comes from the customer always. The provider cannot push the customer, do it like this or do it like that. Yeah.
Alexander, thank you.
Well,
anything to add?
At least usually we are saying and we are proponents of hybrid cloud. So definitely it's a mix of public and private. And depending on the scenario, we discussed, I think, in the earlier session, so we don't need to repeat those scenarios. But I think that, yeah, we definitely need to find proper use cases for any of these clouds.
Maybe I would add one thing to the earlier session. When it was discussion about how are you ensuring that when you have this incident, let's call it kinetic interference happening, that how are you ensuring that the state services towards citizens is actually continuing? And anybody who has a little bit formal education in IT and engineering knows that it's not just the data. Data and processes are actually one whole, which is really difficult, if not impossible, to separate. And therefore, to actually have anything that is really useful when you need it the most, it has to be working basically either regularly or rather continuously. And the Health Insurance Fund has chosen that it is working continuously. Actually, this data center in Europe in public cloud is doing work for our citizens every day. So we have the data, we have the processes, we have the applications, everything is running. And that is the only way to actually ensure that whenever you actually need this resilience in action, then you actually have it. So I think this discussion that what is the role of state cloud and so forth, I think the role specifically is that we are able to extend the management stack of the public cloud into a state-managed local setup so that we are not adding another stack of technology to actually manage and take care of those things and introduce new configuration errors that we don't actually need. So this coherence is really important. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes from it. Right now, the picture is a little bit sad. Someone touched legacy, I don't recall who it was, but as you know, when something 10 or 20 years ago is great innovation, then 20 years later it has become legacy. And Estonia has a fair bit of those things, including some of those state services that when you ask with an API for some information, you're not getting what you want. You get a whole full list of something where you have to parse that. What is it actually that you need? And in that case, we are caching some of that stuff just to ensure that the load is met when we need it. But on the other hand, as it turns out now that if for some reason the operational part is not really there, then for us it is kind of additional security that we have cached that information. But this is not the way it should be. So So there is some work ahead for the Estonian state in ensuring that we have those roles defined, that who is the owner of specific data set, specific service set, that they have the capability to actually be a good owner for these services. And this may be a really simple wording for that problem, but I think this is really significant and important problem. We have a lot of trouble from this ownership point of view in Estonia. But I hope we can solve it.
You can solve it, of course. Any questions, remarks? No, I can't see. So wrapping up this part of discussion, actually, you mentioned a lot of work to do. But anyway, wrapping up, name one major improvement in terms of cybersecurity that should happen this year, next year, to better secure the cloud infrastructure for public sector in the Baltic states. Can you? Could you? Simonas, let's start with you.
Sure, and actually it's a bit aligns with our discussion with Thomas Misevičius, who was previously here speaking. We discussed that at least in Lithuania we are missing, it's not only cybersecurity, but it's related to all the topics we discussed. We miss this, let's so-called national disaster recovery or business continuity plan. Because yes, some of the systems they are backup, some of the systems they have active or passive scenarios, but in reality it's still very fragmented. And we don't have nation-level agreement or plan. So I think that should be among our priorities, and we even agree that our next action points will be to discuss this with our government.
Thank you, Achu. Alexander?
I completely agree. That's a very strategical goal, right, and something that is extremely important. On a more technical one, I would say, because I've mentioned it already, and we can see from engineering point of view that adoption of AI creates a lot of challenges. I believe investing in people's capability, the people that sit behind the cloud, right, the IT operations and so on, enable them and help them to use AI to compete against the existing challenges. This is something we internally try to do, right? Fighting AI, I don't know, bad behaviors without AI, it's going to be very difficult to do. So probably that's another thing that you can add on in your plan.
Karl-Henrik.
There are actually several things, just two from the top of my mind. First of all, I mentioned that we are starting to build common security organization within this health ecosystem. And that has a lot to do also with cloud, especially from the tool set and some other points of view. It's really important. And the other one I would say is that I really hope that we are able to realize this type of local set of public cloud, because that is really important. We have so few people in Estonia, and it is really important that when we choose a certain way of doing things, that we are not duplicating those technologies and needs for competences unnecessarily. So if we can somehow manage that in an organized way, that would be of huge help.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and let's applaud. You have one question?
A question.
Quick one. Okay, let's go.
Yes. Do you have any experience on LLM poisoning? So these days LLM poisoning, and you seem to be the perfect ones. My apologies for that. Thank you.
The past 2 years I worked too much with LLMs, so it's a very difficult story, right? So my team was one of the teams that actually supported one of the foundational model training. So we were talking about tens of millions in GPU in order to train something that is European and so on, right? LLM poisoning. So first of all, the question is, who is going to be the bad actor here, right? Poisoning by whom, right?
So there are service providers, let us say, SEO domains. The service Bulgarian company, 120 employees, they have 200,000 SEO domains, and they publicly offer SEO, like LLM poisoning services for anyone.
Yeah, that's a very complex topic. The vulnerability here is that most of the large language models are built on public data, right? Which means you can actually ingest any kind of bad behaviors or any kind of, you can influence it. It's even with prompt injection, you can achieve great things, yeah? And this is why it's a matter of, okay, how do you put AI and LLMs in production? So for example, you can take a foundational model, right? And you need to make the foundational model work for you, yeah? Most of the providers, such as Oracle, Microsoft, AWS, they provide some guardrails, which as a service, we are trying to make this very unlikely, for example. But when you're starting to experiment pretty much with your own provider, so you run it by yourself on your own GPU and so on, that's a very different story. Now, I was hesitating at the beginning because you're saying you try to influence pretty much the LLM, okay, but let's imagine what kind of actors we have behind there, right? It could be a state that is trying to influence the behavior. It could be just a political party that is trying to make an LLM which is going to be, I don't know, more democratic or more conservative or something like that. So it's a very complex topic. I think we need to take control over the LLMs as well. Sovereignty, it's not about data sovereignty, data center sovereignty and so on, but unfortunately it's also about LLM sovereignty right now, right? And we need to address this with a very careful picked architecture. For example, when we were discussing, there is some work here, training in Baltics happening, I think, and I'm trying not to. Tilde has an effort in building a foundational model that understands better the language and the nuances of the language, right? From what we have seen, putting AI in production, and this is something that we do at Oracle, we offer the customers the chance to use from Gemini to XAI and so on, right? All the foundational models. Most of the customers require fine-tuning for the specific use cases, so to make it work for you, we need to expose those large language models on our data set, which means a different approach. And this is why LLMs require a strategy that are going to mitigate some of those challenges and others. Yeah, I know it's a very long and complex answer, but it's also a very difficult question to answer. It requires, we could speak probably for 2 hours here on a stage on the topic.
Any experience from cybersecurity?
If I can add, just putting it in production, it's great. You can go ahead and play with it with a provider such as Oracle, AWS, or whatever. 90% of the customers, when they put it into real production systems and so on, they want to run the LLM under their own control, meaning their own GPUs or a managed service that is not going to work on the. It's also a matter when you exchange messages with an AI provider, you are literally exposing data to a third party, right? So there are different facets of the problem. What I can say is that if you really want to take it under control, probably to run a foundational model or fine-tune it in an environment that you control, probably that's the best approach and the way to mitigate such behaviors.
Alexander, thank you for your expertise. Any more questions? I don't see any. Anything to add? If not, Alexandros, Simonas, Carl Henrik, thank you very much for your input. Let's applaud them. They are really experts. Really, they know what they are doing. Thank you very much. Actually, we are going to come to the end of the very intense and very inspiring day. We have heard about the experience of our neighbors and the state of play across the Baltics and the perspectives of global technology leaders, discussed resilience, sovereignty, and ever-present challenges of cybersecurity. So, on behalf of organizers, LIKTA, ITL, and Infobalt, I would like to thank all our speakers, audience for the questions and your attention. You are not getting bored, I see. The strongest ones are here in the room. Thank you very much. So I want to thank all cooperation partners, the Ministry of Smart Administration and Regional Development of Latvia, industry partners, Golden Partner TED, Silver Partner Latvia State Radio and Television Center, partners DAT Group, Microsoft, Oracle, and SAP, and of course, all of you here in audience for your active participation. And now I invite you to continue your conversations, get some cup of coffee, water. Thank you very much and see you at the next Baltic Cloud Forum. I hope next year. See you soon. Thank you very much.